Okay, we are streaming to YouTube. We're ready when you are.
Okay. Call this meeting of the Seward City Council to order. It is Tuesday, November 12th. It's 7 p.m. And Chief, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call for tonight's meeting. Wells.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
Kreitz.
Here.
Finch.
Here.
Barnwell.
Here.
Warner.
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, we're now at citizen comments on any subject except items scheduled for public hearing. We have one public hearing item, and that is Resolution 2024-059. The first public hearing, first of three for the budget. So you'll have a chance to speak at that time to that. Anything else you can speak to? There is a 36-minute time limit on this, and we will hold to that. You have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes each, and the people who signed in have first shot, and if there's time, we'll get others with show of hands. And when you come up, it's the chair right there with the microphone, and we would need your name and whether you're inside or outside the city limits for your residence. Mr. Clerk, who's signed up?
There are 11 people signed up to speak. First on the list is Lori Draper.
Okay.
Lori Draper, inside the city limits. I'm going to shorten mine up a little since there's so many people here. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm not opposed to city employees being compensated. I want to see them near the top of any list of employees. However, I did want to comment on the wage study. I believe that we need to compare our wages, benefits, and cost of living to truly compare with other communities, not just the wages. I think we should compare our wages and benefits to communities and employers that we compete with for our employees. While not completely unheard of, it's rare that the employer pays 100% of insurance premiums, which I believe our city does. And it shouldn't be ignored while doing a wage study, as it's a direct impact on take-home pay. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average employee share of premiums is 14% for local and state government employees and 20% for private employees. If our employees were paying 14% of their insurance premiums, according to the figures in the 25 and 26 budget, that'd be roughly $400,000 or 5.5% of salaries. And if they paid 20%, that'd be $550,000 or 8% of salaries, which is ironically the amount of the increase that we're looking at. I think what we need to do a comprehensive study of total compensation package by an impartial outside group so that we can dig a little bit deeper and find out why we're struggling to keep employees in these key positions of these great year-round jobs at the city with good benefits. And the next item I wanted to my time doing? Okay, I wanted to comment on the electrical utility budget. Last year, the mid-cycle budget adjustment, there was a projected $2 million increase in the cost of power from Chugach. That didn't happen. So that's been adjusted in this year's budget, but the electrical rate has not been scheduled to go down as far as I know. So I'm wondering why, that amounts to about 4 cents per kilowatt hour, $2 million. And I'm wondering why we can't have the rate reduced back down by 4 cents, because the ratepayers could use that relief. And see the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Kylie Lambert.
Hi, Kylie Lambert in City Limits. I own a small business managing vacation rental properties here in Seward, none of which those properties I own myself. Although I understand the goal to keep our tax dollars in our city and the need for more funding, I'd like for council to consider a few things. At the current rate of 4%, the levied tax has grown each year since established in 1995 and will continue to alongside nightly rates, which consistently increase each year following market trends and inflation. This allows a steady growth of tax revenue already with increasing the rate. The city has stated it recognizes the need to diversify revenue that minimizes the burden on residents and year-round community members. Of the 12 properties we manage inside city limits, all but 2 are current Seward residents, and all of which have been Seward residents with current strong ties to the community. So this will affect our community members. It's suggested that the tax is a fee on the end user. However, for consumers to absorb an additional 4% bed tax totaling 15% with borough and city sales taxes, owners would need to lower rates to remain marketable, decreasing their revenue and affecting their livelihood. It's mentioned that no extra work is required for those businesses to implement this change. However, implementing the new rate on January 1 would cause mixed tax rates and reservations, more than doubling accounting work. By the first of the year, many properties already have semi-full calendars, some upwards of 70% booked, causing owners and property managers like me to examine each reservation individually to determine the correct tax to remit, which is a lot of work. January 1 is an arbitrary date that works for many new initiatives, but does not work for summer season lodging. If a rate increase is passed, I strongly encourage council to consider a date more conducive to the seasonality of our lodging, perhaps October 1st, to allow time for owners to plan and adjust rates for the upcoming season. Regards to the date, I'm assuming that the new rate would only apply to bookings made post-implementation, because if it was applied to all reservations in 2025, this would be a significant substantial financial loss for our community members to come out of pocket to pay the additional 4%. I understand that this is in response to the borough's proposed bed tax raise, and beating them to the punch keeps our dollars here working for us, which I love. But that proposal is tabled, and doubling the rate feels a little extreme. Regardless of what council decides, please consider altering the implementation date to allow our community and local business owners to prepare for such a big change and economic impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Suzanne Ryder.
So she pretty much said everything already. Should
Suzanne, if you just, state your name and in out, and then you can just say that, because that was pretty much what you had sent us to. So you can just say that you agree or something similar.
My name is Suzanne Reeder, and I'm within the city limits. I own and operate Moby Dick Hospital. I already sent in a letter, and I trust you read that. And all my additional comments have just been mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Colby Lawrence.
Can I give you guys a
Yeah, just hand it through Chris and then he'll pass it out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Colby Lawrence, outside city limits. I'm one of the partners at the Breeze Inn Hotel, Restaurant, and Lounge, as well as a partner at Major Marine Tours and the Gateway Hotel. And I'm here tonight to voice my opposition to Ordinance 2024-014. Several things about the statements made in the background and justification are pretty misleading, and I feel like the council members and the citizens need to understand what the ramifications might be if this were to take place. And I also feel it's pretty unfortunate that no one within the administration or the council had any time to talk to anybody in the industry, because I think we could have had some conversations about this. The proposed doubling of the bed tax rate would move Seward from the middle of the communities mentioned in the background and justification statement to the third highest. And when you consider city and borough taxes, the communities that were picked are kind of misleading because many of them don't have city or borough tax. So their bed tax might look high, but they don't have any other taxes they have to pay. If it passes, the only two towns that would have a higher rate than us would be Dillingham and Bethel. which are not comparable to Seward. So when you look at the sheet that I just handed you, which compares to the Seward area, Kenai Peninsula area, we already have the highest rate on the peninsula, and by doubling it, we would go to 15, which would be higher than Anchorage, who also doesn't have a sales tax. So I just think that the city needs to think about this before they jump to any big conclusions here. It also says that no work is required by the businesses, and as Kylie just said, that's completely false. There will be costs to our business. We'll have to do website redesigns and tax restructures. We, as a business, we project out 2 years. We do our budgeting 2 years in advance. We already have clients that we've signed contracts with that we can't renegotiate. So that means our business eats 4% of that, and I don't think we should have to do that. So changing the date is certainly something that needs to happen. Also, where it says that it's the end user that pays for it, that's kind of right, but we also have credit card transaction fees, and when our rates go up, so do our transaction fees. So we're estimating in the middle of the somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 a month in extra credit card transaction fees that would also be on the business, not on the end user. Just so that's another thing that just adds more to this 4%. And then lastly, I'm probably not going to have time, so I'll let somebody that comes behind me hit it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Nicole Lawrence.
My name is Nicole Lawrence. I live outside of city limits, but I do own multiple businesses and properties inside city limits. There is a perception from people who support this proposed ordinance 2024-014 that our visitor industry alone can bear the extra burden of supporting our city's desire to grow the general fund. The fourth whereas of the ordinance, Kylie already quoted for you guys, but it says that it recognizes the need to diversify revenue in a way that minimizes the burden on our residents and year-round community members. But in complete contrast to this statement is the fact that this ordinance will directly affect residents and year-round community members. It won't be the visitors who are as negatively affected as it will be the local businesses in town. Local businesses that are owned by community members. Even city employees agree that it is locals who own the majority of lodging in town. Local business owners and community members manage most of the city's lodging facilities, and while it's true that a bed tax is often passed on to visitors, the tax increase places Seward's local businesses at a significant competitive disadvantage. Tourists who have a choice to stay somewhere where it's 15% tax versus 3% just a few miles away may opt to stay outside the city, or they might reduce the number of nights they spend in Seward. With limited lodging outside city limits, some may choose to day trip or stay in nearby towns like Cooper Landing or Moose Pass, paying a lot less in bed tax. This reduces their time and spending within Seward, impacting not only lodging, but also local tours, shops, restaurants. We all have a hard enough time getting by as it is. This ordinance wouldn't just affect visitors from out of state during the summer months either. We have sports teams, school groups that come down in the winter and spend the night, and local Alaskans looking for a getaway weekend. If the city doubles bed taxes, they would be completely contradicting statements they've previously made about making Seward a winter destination. People would drive down for the day, but they'd be spending less time and money on all the things that help us support our local economy in the winter. We want to grow our winter business, not shrink it by instating an ordinance that makes Alaskans want to spend less time here. It's clear this isn't just a lodging issue. Visitors spending less time in Seward overall will affect our entire tourism industry. And for many of us, that's how we support our livelihoods in this very small and continually more expensive town. You, as individuals, are probably pretty smart when you travel. I would assume you use a budget. Visitors and Alaskans are also thoughtful about how and where they choose to spend their money. I oppose the ordinance for more reasons than I have time to state, but I will state a few. The lack of transparent collaboration between the city and local businesses about this proposed ordinance. The city's administrative, I feel like, preemptive knee-jerk really reaction to a scare that the borough is going to swoop in and take all the extra taxes. The failure of forethought from the city about the administrative burden to local lodging businesses caused by trying to instate this tax at this time of year. The fact that the city just made the most amount of bed tax in history this year without an increase to the percentage of tax, and the negative message this sends to the visitor industry we rely on.
Thank you, Nicole. Mr. Clerk?
Tom Tugas.
Tom Tugas, 208 Bear Drive, and rather than, I wrote a letter, went over a lot of my concerns. You will notice it's two-sided, so please read the back. But the thing I wanted to go over is the second page in this, and I did bring some more copies. I didn't realize how popular this event was going to be, so I would have brought popcorn if I'd known. So the second page, this is really about under budgeting the sales tax revenues. So I spent a fair amount of time with some help and looked at the sales tax revenues for the last 15 years. So if you turn to this page, you'll see that the sales tax revenue in column A is what actually came in, and in column C is what is budgeted, and the 3% surplus, that's the amount that goes to the city. The difference between line D and E is line D is the 4%, including the money that goes to the hospital, and line E is the money that is kept by the city. But anyway, the bottom line is that for the last 3 years in a row, the city has under budgeted the revenues to the city by 1.6, 1.3, 1.6, and the proposed 2024 budget is $800,000 less than we actually took in 2023. So the bottom line, and then if you go all the way to the right, you'll see the unassigned cash balance in the general fund. And of course, it's been going up by more than $1 million a year. It's gone from 3.5 million to at the end of 2023, it's $13 million. And where's this money coming from? It's coming from ratepayers. You know, we're really good about increasing rates for utilities and saying it's for infrastructure, but then it never happens. So rather than do this, I'm going to stop only because I know that there's this story about the borough assembly raising the taxes. And when this whole thing happened last summer, I called Peter Machicki and I said, Peter, is it worth it for me to drive to Soldotna to testify about this tax that these two people have come up with? And he said, don't waste your time. He said, it's not going anywhere. He said, we're going to table it and we're going to appoint a committee of the, what's called the Tourism Industry Working Group. And Peter said, I'd like you to be on that working group. When I called him about this thing, he said, don't worry about this head tax, it's not going anywhere. And so I've been asked to sit on that committee, and I will keep you informed of what I learn, but it would be completely ridiculous to have a knee-jerk reaction to increase taxes just because of some crazy thing that somebody put up last summer at the borough. So I will be going to my first meeting in 2 weeks. Our committee hasn't even met yet. So anyway, sorry, but I wanted to clarify that issue.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Billy Wolf.
Hi, Billy Wolf, and I live inside of city limits. I have worked in the lodging industry here in Seward for the past 8 years, and I would like to talk about the increase to the bed tax. Many of the things I had to talk about, previous people have spoke of, but in town, the current tax rate for operators is 11% and out of town is 3%. If we look at that rate for an example of a $400 nightly room rate, in-town operators collect $44 in tax, while out-of-town operators collect $12. That's a $32 difference. And I know, like Nicole kind of said, many travelers, $32 is a lot of money, especially if you're trying to stay somewhere for multiple nights. It adds up, and so many people choose to stay outside of city limits instead of inside. I personally have had guests and vendors ask for discounts on the nightly room rate just to offset the difference in taxes. With the proposed bed tax increase, the in-town operators would collect $60 in taxes on that $400 nightly room rate example, which increases the difference from $32 to $48. This is going to negatively impact year-round businesses that are here in Seward that offer year-round jobs to our community and benefits to those people, like insurance and retirement accounts, as well as rooms for sporting events and lots of things like that. So it's going to drive tourism outside of city limits, and future business lodging operators will probably want to be outside of city limits instead of inside, because you can't be competitive with a 15 to 3% tax rate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Bailey Smith.
My name is Bailey Smith, and I attend Boys and Girls Club. At Boys and Girls Club, we go outside to play out at the court. There is a shed that has abundance of outdoor toys like balls and jump ropes. Recently, there has only been 3 barrels of balls and an empty shelf. I would like to know where all the outdoor toys have gone. It's not as fun as it used to be to go out and play on the court outside. Now our choices of outdoor toys is limited.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Christiana Smith.
My name is Christiana Smith. I live outside Seward city limits. I'm also the proud parent of Bailey Smith, who just spoke. I came before council about last month when it was made public that there would be a new contract drawn up with Boys and Girls Club and the City of Seward Parks and Rec Department. I want to urge you all to consider taking this off the consent agenda and possibly postponing the authorizing of Resolution 2024-062, authorizing to enter into an agreement with Boys and Girls Club of Kenai Peninsula in the amount of $170,000. Like I said last month, I was here 5 years ago. I was asking the same questions. This can't be a reaction to financial need of the city to cut the budget. It needs to be a thought-out process of what is best for the city, for the youth, and for the families of the community. I spoke last month about that in the previous contract, talked about evaluation, and I am not aware of any previous evaluations of the services provided by Boys and Girls Club, and if they met the expectations that the city had put forth for them. In the packet, there was some background information given, and it discussed how the Boys and Girls Club would operate for elementary age children, age 5 to 12, on the middle level of the TYC building on 3rd Avenue. It talked about Seward Parks and Rec utilizing the lower level for teen activities and community events. Does not talk about teen programming, talks about teen activities. I want to make sure that we have the teen rec room open for teens. I've heard murmurings of different situations of how that might play out. I want to see it in writing. I want to have a public discussion about what will be. About 2 years ago, there was a discussion about the Dora Avenue Park, Doraway Park. It wanted to be pulled and that land made available to be sold for housing. Luckily, the members of the council at the time pulled it, had a discussion, and said, let's wait for the park to be built down the road where the Jesse Lee home is. 2 years later, there's still not a park where the Jesse Lee home was. So when I am concerned, when things are not written down and discussed in public forum, I am concerned.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Excuse me, Pamela Eiding.
Thank you for saying my name correctly. My name is Pamela Eiding. I live outside of city limits, but I am one of the owners of the Breeze Hotel, Restaurant, and Lounge. I'm here to express my concerns regarding the ordinance to increase bed tax and the potential negative impacts it could have on our local community. As a business owner, I understand that running a business comes with its challenges, especially in a small community like Seward. My partners and I just bought the hotel earlier this year. At the time of the purchase, we were faced with the immediate impact of the electric rate increase, which added a considerable cost burden to our operations. Additionally, as many places located in the harbor, our business sits on city-owned land, which we lease. As part of our lease agreement, we pay a variable lease rate that is appraised every 5 years to create a new baseline for that rate. And on top of that, there's a second mechanism to increase the lease rate by the consumer price index percentage each of the other 4 years. I don't say this to whine, but just to bring reality that businesses like ours often operate on narrow profit margins, especially businesses that stay open year-round. We lose significant revenue during the winter months and choose to stay open to support the local community and keep year-round employment for our staff. In addition to our seasonal challenges, we also face rising costs in areas like minimum wage and paid sick leave, which further complicate our finances. As business owners, we want to do everything we can to keep our employees' benefits up, and we need to get the most out of our busy seasons to do this. In taking over ownership of the Breeze, one of our goals was to make improvements for our community to enjoy, and that is where we focused most of our improvement costs over the summer. We are now adding a large remodel to old portions of our hotel. We don't have 100% occupancy in our hotel right now, even in the summer months. And we are working on large changes and upgrades to help fill that gap, along with keeping lower rates than the average hotel in Seward. This type of remodel cost takes serious budgeting, forethought, and time to plan for how that money can be saved and utilized. With such a large percentage increase for the bed tax in less than 2 months, the additional financial burden will only make it more difficult. Adding an unforeseen expense to consumers, changes for our staff to implement, and without much explanation on how to increase this in our community, this proposal doesn't seem to take businesses into consideration. As others have mentioned, the average stay in Seward might be decreased because of these bed taxes, and we want to do what we can to keep people in Seward. As locals who live in this community, we want to see long-term growth, but the bed tax seems like a step in the wrong direction. It threatens to drive visitors away, an additional burden to local businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
This is the last person signed in to speak. Katrina Townsend.
Hi, I'm Katrina Townsend. I am inside city limits. And I also want to speak about the transition of the teen room from Boys and Girls Club. I am an employee of the Boys and Girls Club, but I am not here as a representative of the Boys and Girls Club. I'm here as a concerned parent of a teen. So I don't work directly with the teens, but I chose to raise my teenager here because it's a wonderful beautiful city. I'm very concerned about the children. I'm passionate about the children and the teens. We're told about the transition earlier this month, and we have seen, I'm so sorry, I'm a little nervous. So basically, it's been my experience that when we opened the teen room and my teen was here, we have boys and girls, teenage boys and girls getting off the bus, and we're not able to open the teen room. I would love to see, some kind of transition or discussion about the transition, because right now, we have teens wanting to come to our facility, and they're not able to. And just as Miss Bailey Smith mentioned, we show up at Boys and Girls Club for the teen room to open the teen room, and we don't have the equipment we've had. The equipment's gone, the sheds are emptied. I personally, having my teen there and excited about the teen room opening, went out and personally spent several $100s on, teen coloring books and, doing these things, because I was very interested in the fact that my teen would be there and very excited about the experience, and we wanted to build, that club. I'm very excited that the city is going to take over. I'm certain that they'll do a wonderful job with it, but while in transition, we are still responsible to those teens, and and they still need a place to be. And so we've had to close because there's wet paint on the walls, and we've had to send them home from school when they expect the club to be open, because there's visqueen on the floors. Just recently, we've not had the equipment that we have. Apparently, and I don't know the discussion, as I said, between the Boys and Girls Club and the Parks and Rec. I'm not privy to that. All I know is that when we go down for our supplies, they're just not there. They've just cleaned it out, and we've not even had an opportunity to put those aside for these few months. So I just would love for that to be considered in this transition, because we do feel responsible for these boys and girls, and have a vested interest in them, both personally, because this is our home and it's their home. So thank you.
Thank you. And that's all that signed up, right? Others in the audience, let me start with Patrick here. We'll work that way. We have, how much time do we have left? About
5 minutes.
Yeah, so keep it short if you can, and we can get more people on.
Okay. I'm Patrick Messmer. I live outside city limits, been a police officer here for Seward for going on 20 years, 25 years in the state. The biggest factor limiting our economy is the lack of labor. It's not tax rates, it's not anything else. You talk to employers around the city and around the state and around the country, is they can't get reliable workers. Someone said, well, we have great jobs in Seward. If we look at the pay benefit package, we don't. That's why we're losing employees. That's the hard fact. And if we can't afford to pay for this somehow, the economy is going to eventually spiral downward. You have to have people who service people, who run the restaurants. I mean, I hear a lot of issues from business owners, and I get that, but the workers can't afford places to live. They can't afford to support themselves, or cars, and increasing the healthcare cost is just going to make it worse. I saw that taught back and forth, but Alaska has the highest rate of health insurance costs in the country. Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau are the 3 most expensive cities. If we try to rob Peter to pay Paul, that's not going to make us more competitive. We have a room full of city employees, so I want to give them some time to talk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and then next, and then we'll see. Okay. No, I mean, we've got a couple in here, and then.
Matt Susko, outside of city limits. I'm with the police department, been here for 3 years. Myself and Ballard are the last 2 cops that were able to afford to buy houses in town before the market got really crazy. We're probably 2 of the last cops you're ever going to have who are going to be able to buy houses in town. Last week, Officer Adams spoke, just based on the salary and the median house pricing, you're not going to find it. All the cops in town are still looking for other jobs because of affordability. You talk about whether or not you can afford to do this raise, you can't afford not to, because you're not going to have a department if it continues this way. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll get you. Sure. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, and then some folks in the hallway. We may.
Hi, my name is Nancy Hilbert. I live within city limits.
I moved here in 2019, and I worked for the harbor, and now I work for the finance department. As the person who was very close to hiring in the harbor, I spoke at the work session, but I'll just reiterate, I have watched my employees lose their housing to short-term housing. I have watched them move into RVs. I have watched them move into yurts with no running water and no running power. The reality is that we're talking about essential services that the city provides, and the fact that people have to be able to afford to live here if we want to be able to fill these positions. If we want people to answer the phone when we call 911, Pat mentioned at the work session that the police department is concerned they may not be able to do 24-hour coverage anymore. We need people to work the utility counter and these frontline positions in particular, the administrative positions, the positions in the finance department. They don't pay competitively, particularly for the cost of housing. When one of my office employees went down and was thinking about living in the yurt and moved into a $1,400 one-bedroom cabin, that was more than one of his paychecks. That was more than half of his take-home income. So, we're committed. We want to live here. We want to be able to work for the city. I'm conscious of the fact that we're public employees and that we need to be responsible stewards of public resources. I think we all take that very seriously, but we really do have a real crisis here in terms of staffing and in terms of being able to retain people. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We can get, Rissy, why don't you come in and then we can see how many we can fit in.
Christine Casagranda, inside city limits. Since we're having bed tax for introduction, I think this is a good time to ask if this ever comes, well, first, please pull it off the consent agenda so that we can hear the discussion and better understand where this is coming from. And second of all, when I file my taxes for the borough, I get a 5% early remittance fee. It feels like this, and it feels like this, and I'm like, man, I like doing this. It gives you like a feeling of belonging, and like you're being paid to do something really great for the community. So at some point, I would like to see some sort of thanks to us. The lodging de-incentivization program, now a higher bed tax. At some point, it is okay to say thank you to this industry, and that would be a really great way to say it. In the future, I don't support the additional bed tax for having no really good reason to do it. I would be behind an increased bed tax if we were funding something for our children, if we were funding something for our residents year-round, if we had a community center that we've all been dreaming of for so many years. Our bed tax, as many people before me have already mentioned, it's growing. It's a growing pot of money, and it just keeps on going to the same things, and we're not really seeing any great benefits from it. So I'd like to see something come of that bed tax. That's why it was originally established back in 1998. And I just wanted to also mention that the Alaska Municipal League website still does not have any job postings from Seward on it. And so it would be really great. I've heard a couple employees say it's hard to find employees. As an employer, I'm very blessed. I have a really amazing year-round staff, and they're all local, and I feel very grateful for that. But it does take a lot of advertising and a lot of outreach and a strong personnel. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else from the hallway we can get in? Okay.
Yes, my name's Shane Hand. I live in town. I'm also a local Seward Public Employees Association employee rep, or union rep. I also work for Public Works Street Department. I just want to mention that, yes, make a couple bullet points. The main part is that we are struggling, as you know, most people, 70% of America right now is living paycheck to paycheck. Housing in Seward is extremely expensive. I've lived here for 20 years. When I first moved here, I left from Colorado, and I realized a working person could buy an acre of land and relatively not have to break the bank. That was 20 years ago. Now that doesn't happen. I've since then sold property, rented, and then went back into property timing, I'm not going to blame that on anyone else, but I am relatively part of that 70%, and I have a good job with the city. And I don't feel like that people should have to make the choices to stay here in Seward for 20 years, contribute, and make this our home, not go work on the slope, not be part-time people, not be seasonal people who work here a bunch, and they make their money and they go to Thailand or wherever they want, and then come back next year and they just do this thing. I'm not taking away from that. But it's the people that live here year-round that have made the sacrifices to watch lumber departments go away. Groceries get more expensive, property get more expensive, rentals go from, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, $1,400 a month to $3,100 plus utilities. I mean, you can't afford that. How is a younger person with a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 kids, supposed to rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $3,100 a month plus utilities? And the bottom line too is all we're asking for is you guys to be in line with what other communities are doing, not be the bottom 12, but be the top 3, because there is a lot more expensive things here. We don't have hardware stores. We have to drive to go get lumber. We don't have those things. And so I would appreciate to realize that, yes, seasonal taxes would increase the seasonal businesses and everything, but we are the year-round people. And we are literally the year-round employment in this town. We respond to everything when we're supposed to respond to. And because we're a public sector business, we also are under a lot more scrutiny as far as how the money's paid to us. And I hate to say it, it feels a lot of time we're out there we're supposed to be happy with what we got, whether it's an employer that pays 100% of our insurance, or employers where back in 2006 they took our retirement away from us. They took our PERS 3. And that's the things that we're going to be working towards is, more defined benefits. So.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Clerk, do we have time for one more?
Leave that up to you if you want to.
Have we reached our 36 minutes? We have. What do you guys think? Should we just allow a couple more or suspend? Are you okay with that? We'll like a couple more testimonies if you want.
Is anybody in me?
If there's anyone out there, I don't know that they can hear me, I'm sorry. Oh, you want, go ahead, sure. We have a lot of business tonight, so we don't want to keep this
Michelle
going too long.
Oliver, I have a house inside city limits that I rent out year-round, and I live outside city limits.
Okay.
I've lived here since 1982. I have watched prices increase time and time again. And what you're looking at is, and I've had a B&B, you have many people that own businesses that are B&Bs, houses that are empty all winter long because they live elsewhere. That's your problem. If you want people to live here, they have to have a place to stay. If you want people to live here, they have to be able to afford housing. It's not going to get any better unless you deal with the reality that the majority of the homes in Seward are not owned by Sewardites anymore. And it needs to change. The other thing that you need to realize is that if you want quality employees, you have to be able to take care of them so they can take care of you. I've lived here over 40 years. I've been a volunteer medic since 1990, and I have worked as many as 5 days a week on the volunteer ambulance corps, not getting paid. I do it because I love this community. You have firefighters that volunteer, that work here in the city. They work in other places of employment. And if you want those volunteers to take care of this community, they have to be able to have a place to stay. They have to be able to earn a living. Thank you.
Thank you. Get one more from the out there, if there is anyone. If not, quickly. Okay. Okay.
All right.
All right, let's call that. Oh, wait, we have one. I'm sorry, come on in. I thought you said no. I'm sorry. This will be the last one.
Hello, my name is Ryan Anger. I live outside city limits. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Ryan Anger. I am currently the Deputy Harbor Master. I'm here tonight to show my support for the wage study increase. If not for myself, for the crew of the office personnel and the harbor workers and the many other workers throughout our fine city who work hard every day to earn a good wage for themselves and their families. As many of you are aware, it is hard to make a living in a tourist town. The cost of living is very high. Many have to choose whether to pay a certain bill on time or put gas in their car or eat. Others who have a family are rarely eating out at nearly $30 per meal. Keeping a good crew of qualified personnel has a price, and if we can do something about that, then it's my belief that we should. Seward is an amazing place that my family and I have been happy to call home for the last 25 years, and I hope that by giving a good competitive wage that many others can someday say the same thing. Thank you for your time and your service to the community, and thank you for your consideration on this topic.
Thank you. Okay, well, we let it go a little longer, I hope you guys don't mind. We're now to the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda. I'd ask for a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to pull some of these.
Okay, well, we need a second first.
I'll second.
And then I will ask, are there any changes that anyone would like to make? And then you may raise your hand and say that. Okay, Councilmember Finch.
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to pull the following ordinances, 2024-014, 2024-062, and 2024-64.
Okay, hold on, 62. And what was the last one?
064.
Thank you. Doesn't look like there's much else to change, but are there any other changes? Okay, Mr. Clerk, I think we're ready.
Okay, voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Warner?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Alrighty, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved and approved on the consent agenda for the October 28th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes and Resolution 2024-063, authorizing the city manager to enter into a service agreement with Liftoff LLC for 1-year renewal of the city's Microsoft 365 licensing subscription in the amount of $46,530.
Okay, thank you. So those items we won't be discussing tonight. Everything else is still on the table. Next, we have the city manager's report, and if you have a packet, you'll find it on page 5.
Great.
Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to first thank everybody for speaking tonight before I hop into the city manager report. The big news that we received the day after the last council meeting, or it was made public the day after the last council meeting, was that the city of Seward was awarded a $45.7 million EPA grant to implement shore power at the Port of Seward. And this is a really exciting project for us to be able to have the electrification of our Seward cruise ship ports as the Railroad and Royal Caribbean are in tandem building the new port down there. We'll be able to implement shore power, meaning we'll be able to bring 4 battery systems so that we can have spinning energy down there and sell power to the cruise ships when they are in town. One of the most exciting parts about this is that the Seward Company, in partnership with Royal Caribbean, has committed the remaining 10% of that federal grant. So usually you get 90% from the federal government, an additional 10% has to come from non-federal sources, and the Seward Company has committed to paying that 10%. So this project, in total of $54 million, will be at no cost to the taxpayers or the ratepayers, and we'll be able to start implementing that just as soon as they start building the railroad. So I am in the beginning stages of grant reporting, where we're working all the fine details in the application and getting that in by the end of the year so that we can have these funds allocated in early January. I'm very excited about this and a lot of the opportunities that it's going to bring, including a sub-award a sub-awardee with AvTech so that we can create local courses on how to maintain and fix and upkeep the battery systems down there. In the long run, the big plus for this is, one, reducing carbon emissions, but also adding a huge ratepayer to our tax base, making us, positioning us to spread the costs across larger rate systems, and through economy of scale, hopefully being able to lower the rates in the long run. So really excited about that. And then just a quick update, we are in the middle of hiring a new library museum director. So we're doing interviews this week, and we should have that all squared away by the end of next. And I'm really excited about that next step there. And other than that, I'll leave it to questions if there are any.
Okay, questions for the city manager? Okay, and that's...
Our city attorney did have to step out for a minute. He's doing double duty on city council meetings tonight. So if we could move the city attorney report later if he's not back in time.
We'll hold this spot
Thank
for
you.
him. Yeah, Mr. Bickling, do you have anything?
No comments, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so next we have a city clerk report on page 14. What you got, Mr. Clerk?
If I have to stall for time for the attorney, I'll read this verbatim.
That would probably not be necessary. Yeah, we can, you figure this out.
This is a 2-page report. It's kind of from all three of us in the clerk's office, a variety of topics. We have some updates on international relations, a great photo from our sister port city in Kushiro, Japan, holding up their Gold Pan Award for a rowing contest. It's part of our award exchange, like you've seen the Silver Salmon Derby Awards that they send to us, and so we finally obtained a photo of them with one of our Gold Pan Awards that we mailed to Japan. And then there's an update on the business licensing and some statistics on the voters in the general election. So yeah, if any of that interests you, check it out. It's on page 14 in the council packet.
Okay, thanks. Are there any questions for the clerk? Okay, since the attorney has not appeared yet back in here, could we move to the Chamber of Commerce report? Is that okay with council? Okay, so let's do that, and then maybe hopefully he'll be back in by then. So we have a report from Sam Allen about the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, hi everybody. Great to see such a packed house. First, I'd just like to address the elephant in the room. We have an organizational policy to remain neutral on political items, but I want to applaud all who spoke on Ordinance 2024-014. It's important to consider the impacts the increase to the bed tax would have on the lodging industry, other local businesses, and year-round visitation. Our organization would gladly collaborate with the City of Seward to explore the impacts on local business in the future. And I also want to say a huge congratulations for the Shore Power Grant. That's wildly exciting and a great example of how tourism works for Alaska. So to dive in October, Communications Coordinator Ali Burdett and I got to attend the Travel Industry Association annual conference in Juneau. This ATIA conference is Alaska's leading organization for travel-related businesses and supporters. It brings together not only leaders in the tourism industry, but it brings elected officials, National Park, the Alaska Railroad, cruise lines, and other DMOs like Seward together in a room. I've attached some data to my report, but during the convention, I realized the importance of having the City of Seward represented at this industry level. It ensures the needs of Seward's, it ensures the needs and priorities of the City of Seward are related to this industry. We can provide ambassadors for the city at this level of industry. And it also helps keep our office abreast of local trends and to bring back data to our local community, our local businesses, and to the city. I gained insight into the significant marketing efforts the state puts out for tourism, not only at the state level, but also private industry are putting into marketing the city, or are put into marketing the state. The state of Alaska allocated $10 million to tourism marketing in '23 and $8.5 million in '24, which is well below the national average at about $20 million statewide marketing budget. So all to say, my point, the City of Seward's marketing efforts are a small but very important and crucial piece of Alaska's relationship with this industry. So moving forward, I hope you see the value in having an ambassador for the city and for our local businesses in this industry, where we can advocate for sustainable tourism for Seward and for those that rely on it here. Yes, so that was ATIA in Juneau, and it was awesome. It was great to attend. So moving forward to talk about winter weekends and other important events, the city contract also helps support meaningful economic development efforts like the Shop Small Weekend happening November 30th this year. Local businesses will be opening their doors to welcome shoppers and encourage everyone to support local this holiday season. We're excited to host a number of pop-ups, hand out Shop Small bingo cards, and give away locally sourced donated prizes for this event. And another event that I'd like to point your attention to is that we're partnering with the Community Development Department to host a chamber luncheon on December 5th to help spread the word about the city's comprehensive plan. So in addition to your kickoff party tomorrow night, I hope the community hears about it and attends. So finally, moving on to my last item in the report is a formal request for a work session. Thank you, Council Member Warner, for helping get the conversation started by sponsoring an agenda item for a work session with the Chamber. Ultimately, we want to make sure that that the services that the Chamber is providing is in line with city goals and priorities, along with our membership's goals and priorities. That's really very important to us. And right now, the cost of delivering the services that are outlined in our current marketing contract is more than the funding that we are given. I'd love the chance to outline our 2023 and our 2024 spending with you in a work session. And I know this is an item later on, but just to give you a high-level idea, in 2023, the Chamber spent $665,000 on services that are covered in the contract, which is more than double the funding we received. And for another high-level overview of how those funds were used, 34% went to staff salaries and office expenses, including 2.5 year-round positions and a handful of seasonal employees. 11% went to economic development efforts like funding the Alaska SBDC office and attending trade shows. And 56% was invested in year-round marketing, including publications like the Hometown Guide, the Visitor Guide, executing hometown events like the 4th of July, Mount Marathon Race, Salmon Derby, and managing and promoting Seward.com. So finally, yes, I would really appreciate if we got to talk about this in detail. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We still don't have the attorney here.
Still MIA.
May I ask the council if you're okay with moving on to the introduction of the ordinance and then maybe take a break at that point? Okay, are we good with that? Since that's what people are wanting to hear anyway. So, don't let me,
Excuse me, Madam
yes,
Mayor.
Mr.
I
Clay.
believe we are on the resolution requiring the public hearing.
Oh, does that go before?
Oh, because it
Oh,
got pulled
yeah.
off. Thank you. See, I knew
That's
I
why
made
he's
a
the clerk.
mistake. I am so sorry about that. Yeah, because it was an introduction for the ordinance for the bed tax, that is going to be placed,
It'll be the first item of
the first
new
item in
business.
number 10.
Number 10.
Ah, sorry, I knew there was too much complication for this. Okay, so let's.
May I
Yes.
interrupt real quick and just confirm with Chris what the order of operations for the next, so we'll do the resolutions requiring a public hearing, 2024-059, adopting the City of Seward operating budget, and then we'll move it into the introduction of the ordinance 014, and then resolution 062, and then resolution 064.
Oh, no.
So it'll
Oh,
be,
and then there's others.
so for 10 new business, we'll start with the introduction of the ordinance.
Okay.
And then we'll go through resolutions 60, 61, and then 62 and 64.
Right. I
Okay,
didn't say
great.
that
Thank you for
before.
clarifying.
I had that on there, so, okay. Which means, after all of that, without doing the, the attorney report, we are at Resolution 2024-59, the public
Yes.
hearing one.
Correct.
Okay.
A lot of things got shuffled around there.
Okay, so let's get that one going.
Okay.
Okay, so what we have here is our one public hearing item. It's Resolution 2024-059. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that in and also explain that it is the first of three?
Resolution 2024-059, adopting the City of Seward 2025 and 2026 operating budget and setting the mill rate. This resolution will have its first public hearing tonight. The second public hearing will be held on November 25th, 2024, and the final approval is scheduled for December 16th, 2024.
Okay, so this being the first, we need a motion to approve and a second.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-059.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We won't have to do that again. That will continue on for the other public hearings. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to start first by once again thanking everybody for participating in the work sessions over the course of October and November, and again tonight as well. As you've noticed, a lot of the resolutions and ordinances that we have placed on the agenda for tonight are incorporated into this FY 25-26 budget cycle. So a lot of the decisions and the discussions that we're having now are part of this bigger picture of what our 25-26 budget looks like. That being said, a budget is a fluid document, and we are, like Chris said, at the first public hearing of potentially three for this budget. So I'm really excited about the conversations we're having and the conversations that we'll continue to have moving forward. Some things to highlight in our budget is, I don't know where to highlight. Some things to highlight in the budget is, yes, we are proposing an increase to the bed tax. We're also proposing sales tax revenue of about $7 million. That is less than the sales tax that we received in 2023, but that is based off of years of conservative revenue forecasting from the city. So we were following that trend of forecasting an 8% increase. We could potentially move forward and forecast a larger increase if that was a risk and an opportunity that the council was willing to and open to taking. Another thing that we decreased in, another change in revenue that we saw in our revenue lines this year was a decrease of the Alaska raw fish tax. Usually we would receive about $400,000. This upcoming budget cycle we are anticipating receiving about $150,000, and we received confirmation of that earlier this week with a letter from the Alaska Fisheries Board saying that the revenue share from the entire state is shifting from $1.4 million in 2024 to $700,000 in 2025. So instead of sharing $1.4 million among all of the communities, we're going to see $700,000 shared through all of the communities. The salary expenses through the wage study are also incorporated into this upcoming budget cycle, including an 8% increase in wages, which we will talk about later during that resolution, and an additional firefighter position as well. We have also anticipated health insurance costs increasing by a conservative 10%. Some non-personnel items, we've actually kept those pretty stagnant with just a CPI increase in the FY25 budget across most line items to account for inflation. I did add additional funds into the city manager's budget to hire a contract grant writer and administrator, as well as additional funds in the community development departments to facilitate and create the comprehensive plan. We also incorporated ongoing costs of an upgraded computer-aided dispatch program for public safety, which will come online early next year, that we discussed and voted on earlier this year. And we discussed an increase in funding to the Seward Senior Center of $25,000 over 2023. We also saw in the Electric Enterprise Fund overview, one of the other large topics of conversation, a a decrease in the electric department's transfers from the electric department funds to the general fund. Annually, each year, the electric department transfers a payment in lieu of taxes and an administrative fee. The administrative fee covers shared resources like the finance department, my time, computers, Microsoft, all of those things that we share as an organization. That is the electric department's way of paying into that through the administrative fee. One of the ongoing goals of the City of Seward administration is to reduce that administrative fee over time by incorporating and consolidating within the electric department. So we have done that by moving over a key position as well, and then in conjunction have decreased that administrative fee. We also saw a decrease in the payment in lieu of taxes because we are recommending a 2-cent rate decrease effective October of 2025. That is based off of the revenue projections that we have for 2025 and 2026 and the projects and the work that needs to be done in our electric department, and directly correlates that revenue to expenditure, and we were able to cut some expenses there to bring that down in October of 2025. All that being said, it is a heavy document, and we spent 5 or so work sessions talking through it. I'm really happy to hear more public comment on that, have some larger discussions about some of the items proposed in the interim since the last work session, and start this, or not start, but continue this process so that on December 17th we have a budget that we're all excited about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bickling, did you have anything else to say?
Nothing to add.
Then I will open the public hearing on Resolution 2024-059. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody has signed in for this public hearing.
It's kind of overwhelming. There will be 2 other public hearings if you're getting revved up for this. But if you wish to speak, if you raise your hands, okay. And while you're coming up, with public hearings, we don't have that in here anymore, I guess. But there's a 5-minute time limit. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct.
And it starts with the sign-ups, and it's the usual name and location. So come on up, Tom.
So if you wouldn't mind pulling out this document that I sent you before. So it really is this whole crisis about needing to raise a bed tax and take half of the community's healthcare or hospital safety net away. It is really driven by the amount of sales tax. Fortunately, I found out from the borough today that by this Friday we will have the third quarter actual numbers from the borough, and so instead of having estimates here, we'll have the first 3 quarters, and of course most of the revenue comes through in the third quarter, which is July, August, and September. But if you look at this, going back to 2013, I just want to go across here because this says that the actual sales tax in 2013 was $7,800,000. It was budgeted at $6.5 million, so the over budget was $1.3 million, of which roughly a little over $300,000 goes to the hospital, but then the $1,717,000 is over budget money, and that's being transferred to this cash reserve account. And so that's the sales tax. The next one is the bed tax, and as you can see, the bed tax was budgeted for $725,000. It actually came in at $840,000, so it was $115,000 over the budgeted number. And if you go back to the first 10 years here, you can see that the budgeted compared to actual was coming in at 98, 99, 95, 93% of what was budgeted, and now the budget is only 82% of what the actual is. So it's $1.3 million under budgeted. So if we bring the budget up to the way it was done for the first 10 years, we would be running closer to where the actual numbers are going to come in, and it would be at a situation where we wouldn't have to have this this crisis situation that we're facing now, doubling the taxes. One of the things anyway, so right now in the general fund, there's 13 million in the cash reserve account at the general fund. But if you look on the back of the paper that I gave all of you, this is from the 2023, it used to be called the CAFR. It's now called something else, AGFR or something. But you can see the citywide cash and investment account is at $59 million. 3 years ago, right before COVID, it was at 38 million. So, and if you take just a 4%, if you get a money market for $59 million at 4%, that's $2.6 million in interest income. And I noticed that for 2025, we're budgeting $260,000 for interest income, even though according to the document, we've already had 1.3 million this year in the first 6 months. So the irony is we don't have a crisis. You know, we're creating this artificial crisis, but we do not have a crisis. The sales tax revenues, the bed tax revenues, the amount in the reserve accounts has never been larger. And so I ask you to be very, I mean, we can say, oh, we're just being conservative, but we're being conservative by raising people's electric rates, by raising people's water and sewer rates, and you know, you wonder where does this $59 million come from? Where does this 13 million come from? It comes from the fact that we've been very aggressive about raising utility rates, telling people we're going to fix the infrastructure. This has been going on for 30 years. We raise the rates. Next thing you know, we have a new city manager and they don't know anything about fixing the infrastructure, and we have the same shitty sewer pipes that we've had for 30 years. And so it's really time to look at this and say, we don't have a crisis. Let's do the things that we promised the community we would do when we raise their rates, rather than raise more rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Are there still people in the hallway? Anyone wishing to speak on Resolution 59? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Hubbard, inside city limits, and I'm going to probably echo a little bit of what was already mentioned, but I've been following this budget process, and I do applaud the administration for laying it out the way it has been. It's been really interesting to follow, and I think you've made it somewhat easy for the council, but there are still some big decisions to make. And I hope you guys are probably getting square eyes by now. It's pretty, there's a lot of numbers and a lot of things to consider, and a lot of stuff to wade through. But I do hope you do your homework on it. And I know I see this list of, you know, the compensation package for employees. You're looking to approve a wage study, but you know, there's just got to be more to it. You know, it's not just wages. There's you got a health care package in there. You could consider paid time off. You can consider holiday pay. You got a retirement system, and I know that I agree that they need to be paid and compensated well to live here. So it's either, do you compensate more, or do you also consider policies and credits to help the locals live here? You know, whether you're a public or a private employee. And I'll put a plug in on. I sit on P&Z, and we're going to have our next work session is on housing, so I encourage the public to come and weigh in on that next Tuesday if you'd like to, because we are trying to really crack that nut to improve our housing situation here for the locals. But so yeah, you have that issue, and I just want to remind you that health insurance, they said it was going to go up 10%, but again, we're providing that for the employees. That's not something that they have to pay for, and the average health insurance for a single person, and I know it's higher in Alaska, but around the country it's $8,400, and for a family the average is $24,000. So that's a pretty good benefit. But again, I'd like to see a more comprehensive study on that than just wages, so that we are considering the big picture for our employees here, and making sure they're, it's not just that wage, that there's other things that's considered. And if there's some options that maybe they don't need one or two, or they prefer this or that. So it's important to look at couch it as a compensation package rather than just an hourly wage. And again, the electrical rate, you did look at revenue projections, and I've said this before, and I do appreciate trying to claw back some of that money, or give us a break on that, but I just think we can get more. We haven't looked at the expense just decrease either. So I was mentioned earlier, there's a $2.1 million line item there that should be considered in that. The bed tax and sales tax is obviously understated, and investment income as well. I think we can. I think Sully said she was going to look into that earlier anyway. So I just would like to see this this whole package, budget package, just maybe drill down a little bit more and do what you can. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate your work, but I think we can kind of sharpen our pencil and do a little bit better. That might ease up some expenses on the people who live here, cost of living, that kind of thing, and as well as get the employees what they need. So I think that's all I have right now. So I might be writing a letter later too, so thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak on Resolution 59? Okay, I'll close. Oh, were you coming in to speak, or were you just coming in to be? Okay.
He kicked me. Becky Dunn, inside the city limits. We kind of have the perfect storm going on, and a lot of the things are not just Seward-wide or statewide or borough-wide, nationwide. But one of the things is it is hard to get employees right now. And I noticed that for the last few years, the Seward has been lacking in advertising these jobs. And when you're looking for employees, you pull out every stop. And the Alaska Municipality League is a great thing where we pay a membership. I think it's $4,000, I'm not sure, a year to belong to it. We get our use out of that. But for the past few years, like right now, I'm on it. Classified ads are free, free's all capitalized, and for members. And there's, you search Seward, there's nothing. And historically, we've advertised on there. So I'd like to see that, and that's just one of the sites that I did a search on. And I know right now we're in the middle of negotiating and giving raises, but this has been for the last couple of years. So I understand maybe right now not, because they're going to raise them, so they'll advertise them when they get the raises in. But I'd really like to see that picked up, maybe revisit the resolution that was the only place the city of Seward had to advertise, and I got a copy of that, was in the Seward, the official page. And I know there's other pages, but I just would like to see that beefed up. And everybody could use a break. If we can get the 2% in October, why not now? One thing that has been going up that the city makes money on that I haven't heard mentioned yet, and it probably has been, is property tax. The value's been going up, so the property tax goes up, so then your insurance goes up, so then your house payment goes up. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they buy a house, is that payment could go up because of that. And Seward is, so I don't, that was just my 2 bits. And as a small business owner, I appreciate all the business that I get from city employees. So you do know, you're well aware where your money's coming from. And the big hike in bed tax too, I kind of feel that was too much at once. And there's a few other options, or I know it was just opening up the door for the conversation. And I do see a lot of people leaving town, and I don't know what we could do to concentrate on keeping them here, but rent U-Hauls, and I see a lot of key people in the healthcare system, and people in the school system, and school nurses. That kind of gets a double point there. Husband and wife teams that are both in the medical field leaving. So there's just a lot of, it's the perfect storm. There's a lot going on right now. I would love to, I don't know, I wish we could advertise somehow to get a vet to come to Seward, maybe, but we've had like 3 emergencies in the last 2 days that I've gotten calls on. So that's about all I have to say, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on the budget?
My name is Nicole Lawrence. I live outside of city limits, and I just want to say that I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing on the budget. I know that's a lot to have to go through, and I very much care about all the city employees, and the cost of living is really high in Seward. A lot of people talk about housing, and I've given presentations to PACAB and P&Z, and the average cost of a home right now is around $400,000. So there are homes that have sold for $350,000 and under this year, a significant number of them. The average price has actually dropped this year in 2024 as compared to 2023, which is fantastic. Rental rates, when I first started 14 years ago, if a 1-bedroom was around $850 a month, that would probably include utilities, and now we have 1-bedrooms and they're $1,000 a month including utilities. $1,400 for a year is a lot, that somebody mentioned earlier, but as a professional property management company that manages over 130 local long-term rentals, I can tell you that our rates are really reasonable. We don't do crazy things and advertise high prices. I feel like a lot of those are often property owners who are kind of doing it on their own and maybe don't have a good read on what people can actually afford in this town. But when we talk to people who want to rent their houses out, we do explain to them that there is a number that Seward people just can't afford at some point. You might want to rent your house out for $3,000 plus utilities, but it's really just not affordable. So we do our part as best as we can to try to contribute to keeping housing rates down. When we list homes for sale, we try to keep them reasonable and not talk owners into making crazy high prices that just don't make sense. So we do what we can, but overall, this is a really expensive place to live with utility costs and housing costs. And, you know, I think all the people who live in Seward deserve to have a living wage, and I think it's great that the city is considering, you know, that they're looking at this wage report and questioning how they can change that and make it a livable wage for a lot of people here. But I do just want to say that I think that all companies here should be doing that. And I also have a hard time when I hear people kind of feeding into the frenzy of the fact that no other police officers can be able to afford a house in Seward. I don't think that's true, and I don't want that stated on public record like it was earlier, that that's going to be a fact, because it's not going to be a fact. We will do everything we can to help people find housing here, and I think wage increases are important, but I also don't think it should come at the detriment to community members like myself and others here who own properties. We have families here who move out of their homes to live in a camper with their 3 children so they can make a little extra money in the summer so that they can afford to live here. And those people shouldn't be negatively impacted. It seems like, based on some of the things that Tom said, and I haven't dug that deep, but that there is money within the city and that maybe some of the budgeting just isn't aligning the way that it should, and maybe that could be looked at again. So, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Christine Casagrande, inside city limits. I just wanted to bring attention to Skip Ryerson's laydown for the electrical that he gave each one of you. And as a citizen, I encourage the council to somehow find a way to provide a 3-cent discount year-round. I feel like After looking at his spreadsheets and the time that I served on the electrical ad hoc committee, there is definitely a way to make it happen. It may include less spending. It may include, just as Mr. Tugas pointed out, maybe not so much under projecting our revenues and over projecting our expenses, and just trying to bring that a little bit more to how we did it 10 years ago. And then I'd also like to encourage council to really look through legislative history and talk to people who served on council years ago when we were, and Mayor McClure, you were here. I don't know if Councilmember Osenga was here, but when the Seward Mountain Haven beds were empty, and the detriment that happens when we have empty beds. We're in a really good place right now. We've had full beds for quite some time, but there are empty beds that do take place. Keep in mind that we own the hospital. The hospital has a roof, it has walls, it has millions of dollars of equipment that depreciates and has to be replaced. And to disregard that savings that we have for that facility, you're going to end up in the same spot that you are today with your electrical. Because when I sat on council, we decided to not pad the MRF like we should have, and now we're here today. So please be very cautious about taking that money from the sales tax and not putting it in the Providence Fund like it was before. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and just remind council this is just the first of 3 public hearings, but I'll bring it back to council if there are any comments at this point. Yeah, Councilmember Finch.
5 out of the 7 of us were involved in the last budget, and I believe it was very conservative. Okay, because we were just looking at the prior budgets. You know, we find out tonight that we've hit our record high on sales tax. I would like to see future projections with the sales tax, because everybody in this room, your retirement, your investments have gone up in the last 5 days. We have, if we're going to look at future projections, let's look at future projections of a better economy. I would like to see this operating budget go back and take the 2023 budget that we set and did and be that conservative with the 4% sales tax. And I want to make it real clear. I fully support a pay raise, but I want the pay raise done that isn't affecting our children, all right? The reason I pulled a lot of this stuff off is because of the effect, like Mr. Tugas had talked, we've been doing this for years, putting money away, and it needs to go back into the system for the year-round locals. But I support the pay raise, but I believe we can do the pay raise with our sales tax money we already have, with a projection of our budgeting being better. But I would like to see a motion for this to go back to be more conservative like our last budget.
Just to clarify, at this point, we cannot pull this resolution because we do need to have the public hearings on the agenda, on the budget as proposed by charter and code. But what I can recommend is looking at our 2023 actuals, which came in at $7.8 million for our sales tax. This year we propose an 8% increase over our budgeted. That is based off of past year's conservative projections, because I think past administrations lived through COVID in 2020 and saw those numbers drop. I think that as some council members or some audience members mentioned, the past 3 budgets have been done by 3 different city managers, so finding a consistent theme there is not always the case, but that was a consistent theme that we followed, to have an 8% conservative increase in our sales tax numbers. That being said, the 7 people I'm looking for set the policies. So based off of some of the conversations tonight, if you chose, council could recommend an amendment to increase 4,000 from 7,020 to potentially the 2023 actuals, and then decrease the line item 4,020 by that same amount, and that would sorry, I lost my train of thought. And that would have our hotel motel room tax rate stay the same and have those projections be in line with the 2023 revenue. So that is a policy choice that you would be making to be more liberal in your forecasting, but based off of 2023 actuals. So
That also could be something that could be moved at the next public hearing when we've had more time to absorb that information.
Exactly.
And think it through.
But I did just want to clarify, at this point, we cannot pull this document off because it does need to have the required public hearings, and we are within those timelines, so any changes made to it have to be made through amendments from the council.
My recommendation might be to have us all look into that exact thing and then come back at the next public hearing with a specific amendment. That doesn't sound bad to me. It's just that I think I would like to see the numbers right there. I mean, it's kind of, because that's why we have 3 public hearings also.
Exactly. And so what council could direct us to do is to bring back a proposed amendment so that it could be easy to propose, and then you can vote on that proposed amendment. Would that be amenable to council?
Would that be okay with
Yes, ma'am, and I thank you, and I've got other questions concerning it, but we can discuss those later.
Okay, so is that something we'd like administration to do? Yes.
Great.
So directed.
Great, directed. And I would also like to clarify on one item, many of our infrastructure projects are not included in this budget because this is our working and operating budget. So currently we have, actually I'll let Jason talk.
So we may not be dealing with pipes specifically, but that is on our capital improvements list. But we know that the city infrastructure has not been taken care of for decades, pretty much since the earthquake. That's when all of our city facilities. So we do have the Public Works building that is it's up to about 65% designed. That's about a $20 million project. We have a fire department that we're planning for, a new police department, and a harbor master, South Harbor Uplands office. So those things are not in the budget, but you're looking at probably pretty easily about $70 million worth of projects that we are planning for in the future that are staging up right now to come forward that we are trying to just take care of the infrastructure and do right by that, and making sure that we have, because good infrastructure is actually more efficient. And on the electric side too, we do know that our generator facility is very old and outdated, and we know that we're going to have a study done and some major upgrades there. So we are aware of those things. They're not in the budget right now, but those are projects that we know that we have to have money for in the future. So.
Any other council members have? Yes, Councilmember Barnwell.
I just want to say I'm recovering from a cold and I can't hear half of what people are saying. I'm sorry about that. I flew with a cold, so if I'm looking out there with this dumb look on my face, it's probably because I have some hearing. Can't hear very well. But I do want to point out, I want to reiterate what Jason said. While we look good on paper right now, we do have a lot of infrastructure. We're looking at $7 million to finish up our final phase on the electric. We have $8 million on our water and sewer that we're looking at. We have a fire hall that's falling down. We have the police department is just needs. We're desperate for a new police department. So again, looking at this, it looks like we're flush. I just want to reiterate that we're trying to look at a bigger picture in the next 5 to 10 years out, and trying to do right by the city. It's not like I don't think we're sitting on this cash and hoarding it. We really are trying to think carefully how we're going to negotiate the next 5 to 10 years. So, thanks.
I would also like to clarify, there was a statement made that our general fund balance is 13 million, but as of today, without closing out October, we're at 8 million in the general fund balance. 8.3 million, I believe.
Which would be how many months?
That's through October.
I mean, that's the reserves, right?
Yeah, we need about 3 to 6 months, so that's about 6 months.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it's still a bit of.
Yeah. And then if the council would like, I could also invite Brian Hickey, the utility manager, to speak to some of those questions regarding the utility at this time. I think I think there was like 1 or 2 to highlight. Yeah.
Before we get to Brian, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So we're basically forecasting a lower number than our sales tax, but our sales tax brought in and our bed tax, and so we wound up with a surplus of $1 million plus on these years. So would it be possible to find out did some of that money go to something, you know what I'm trying to say? We're not just, that's not just sitting there.
No, it goes in, I'll let Suli answer that, or if there's a microphone.
I mean, did it go like projects, or did we put it?
It goes into our capital.
Any surplus for the general fund goes to the capital acquisition fund, where it has been funding the ERP program, the
DRP program.
Development reimbursement.
sidewalks. On top of my head, those are the 2 main projects on top of my head over the 2 or 3 years. And by budget policy, that is what it means. Any surplus goes to the capital acquisition fund.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes, Councilmember Wells.
Yeah, thank you. Just real quick, there's a couple documents over there that I created, and they made them public documents by sharing them with council. First, I spent a lot of time putting together a 10-page document outlining pros and cons for the bed tax. And somebody said earlier that they were disappointed that council didn't reach out to anyone in the industry. Well, first of all, I am in the industry because I do own an Airbnb. And second of all, I did reach out to people in the industry. And today, I put up another document that makes an additional option, which is raising the 2024 sales tax revenue increase. And I put in there that my most important goal is to fund the wage increase. And so I just wanted to clear that up because I put a lot of time into that research, and for someone to think that I did not consult the industry, that's inaccurate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add something else?
Yes.
And for public safety programs as well.
Oh yeah.
Over the years.
Okay, so we're speaking on the operating budget still, so.
I'm gonna
Madam City Manager.
invite Brian Hickey up for
Yeah.
a brief moment and let him speak to the electric operation budget.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to comment, and I appreciate the dialogue throughout the city, but also with Mr. Ryerson. He pointed out a few things, and I just wanted to kind of walk through them for the council and the public. I don't know if everyone doesn't have this, so.
No, I don't believe so.
I don't want to read it verbatim.
Yeah. No, don't
But
do
generally, one of the items he brought up and was mentioned earlier is that I think in the mid-cycle budget adjustment in 2024, the Chugach, the cost of the Chugach contract was increased by about $2.1 million. That didn't materialize. I can't speak to why it was put in, but to speak to what our budget currently reflects, we took the actual rates that were approved by the Regulatory Commission of Alaska in September of this year and used those to calculate the $6+ million that we believe the Chugach contract is going to cost on a going forward basis. We are in negotiations with that contract, and we do have an agreement to continue it on a month-by-month basis, but I don't think you're going to see much of a change from what we put in the budget, because those numbers were what the Regulatory Commission approved to allow Chugach to charge us. So I think that's what you'll see there. And just to step back and say how the budget was developed, what we did was we identified a number of projects that we think need to be undertaken by the electric department to modernize the utility, kind of bring it up to current standards. Some of these things probably just have been neglected over the years, but we put that list together, and I had a slide during my budget presentation. You know, total for '25, we anticipated about $1.9 million that we wanted to include in additional programs, and that's on the slide that you guys saw. And that was in '25, and then in '26 we had about $1.6 million in additional programs. We put those together, we put those down, and then we went back and looked at the existing budget, and we looked at our mid-year costs through June 30th of 2024. And we said on a line item by line item basis, if the actuals through June 30th of 2024, if you doubled them, if they didn't agree with what the 24 budget was, if it was much higher, then we went back and took the 23 actuals, brought them forward through at 6%, 3% for the year 2024 and 3% for the year 2025, and that's what we put in the budget. Once we did that, we compared that number to the revenue that was projected, and we realized that we couldn't afford the $1.9 million, and so based on for 2025 and the $1.6 million in 2026, so then we backed that down to, if you recall, I had a prioritized list of things we needed to do. We got about half of them in there. That's an increase of about $869,000. The majority of that is in clearing, $600,000 in right-of-way clearing. And I know that the clearing numbers appear large right now. Over time, they will go down, but the right-of-ways have not been maintained for decades. We're not doing what we would call right-of-way clearing. We're doing logging. And what we really have to do is get the right-of-ways cleared, and then we can start maintaining them. And you will see those costs drop off. But for those of you who are around town, we have many, many right-of-ways with conductors going through trees, and that's both a safety hazard, it's a liability for the city, and your right-of-ways really need to be cleared. That's kind of rule number 2 in the utility business. Rule number 1 is grow your load. Rule number 2 is clear your right-of-way. So that's something we've got to do. That's about $600,000 of the $800,000 we have in here. So that's how the budget was developed. So whether Chugach went up or down by $2.1 million, this is sort of what I'd take a quasi-zero-based budget. This is what it takes to move the utility forward. And so then I'll go through a couple of the other things that were brought up. The council may want to inquire as to why the large general service revenue was increased by $520,000. Really what happened there is we took the 2023 budget actual, because the June 30th actuals didn't appear, if you doubled them, they didn't appear to work when compared to the 24 budget. Went back and took the 23 actuals, moved it forward by 6%, and then we added the $450,000 that was under a special contract for the Sea Life Center, and that now moved into large general service, and so that's why that number is the way it is. Let's see, is it worth noting revenues? See the budget? I haven't got there yet. What's that? Oh, I'm on C. On C, yeah, so one of the things with respect to the MRF, in order to meet the budget that we proposed with the revenues we had, we zeroed the contribution to MRF, so we're not making a contribution to MRF this year, because we couldn't undertake these projects and still make the contribution to MRF and still be below our revenue.
Yeah.
Salaries, in D, the salaries have gone down because myself and Taylor are on contract, and so we were moved into contract services. We're no longer as a personnel cost, so that's why you see that difference there. There's a note on, it might be worth obtaining more information on 2025 contract services, including the tree clearing services. So what we've done as far as tree clearing, we put out an RFP for tree clearing services several weeks ago. The proposals are due back Friday. We've had 4 companies ask for the RFP. 2 of them have come back and asked questions about how it's going to work. We'll open those bids on Friday, and then we'll determine what we can actually accomplish with the money that we have in the budget, and that's all we will spend on that. So we actually are going out getting a competitive bid on that, and I think AK Tree Service and Carlos are very interested, and I think there are a couple other folks. So we'll do that. It says 2025 personal staffing should be revisited and promoted for fully staffed. Just to give you some benchmarks, Cordova Electric, which is about half the size on kilowatt hours of Seward. Cordova Electric generates about 30 million kilowatt hours a year. They have 15 employees, and we have 11. Copper Valley Electric, which is about a little less than twice our size, they generate about 90 million kilowatt hours, and they have 45 employees. We have 11. You know, as an operating manager with 40 years experience in this business, we are understaffed in a lot of ways, and I think at some point in the future, we really need to actually operate as a utility. We really are going to have to grow that, but right now we're not in a place to do it. There's some critical things we got to do, like clear our right-of-ways and get that stuff underway. So that's sort of the staffing issue. He discusses the general fund administrative fees have been reduced by $53,000. Kat addressed that. Those are basically, we've taken the billing function over to the electric side, and so there's been a decrease in the administrative funds related to that. And then the electric fund, let's see, did I hit it all there?
Yeah.
Oh, the 424, yeah, okay. And then the last thing I just wanted to say is, on the PowerPoint slide, if you were to reduce every penny that you reduce the electric rate costs reduces our revenue by $550,000. So if you were to do a 3-cent decrease, you're reducing the budget by $1.65 million. Now, we've put about $800,000 worth of projects in here, $600,000 of it is clearing. We would have to then go back and reduce electric performance, and I'm not really sure where we would cut another, $200,000 to $400,000 out of the budget. We just took actuals and moved them up by inflation, plus the adds that I expressed to you. So I don't think a 3-cent, I think the 2-cent 6-month rate decrease that we've put in there, we're going to live with that, and we'll defer some of these critical items to later years, but that's sort of where we're at on that. If there's any questions, I'd be certainly happy to answer them. Appreciate the dialogue and the interest from the community. I think it's a good sign, healthy sign.
Councilmember Barnwell.
I just want to point out that, Brian, what you're talking about here is basically our phase 3, which originally, I think we were talking about having a bond for that. So what we're doing as a city is trying to not take out another bond. It's much more efficient and cost effective to pay it out of pocket. So that's basically what our goal of what we're doing here.
So that is that's the infrastructure project. These are just basic operational needs of our department, like tree clear. Yeah, so these are the basic day-to-day. That doesn't hit any of that at all. This is just so that our department acts like a electric department in the late 90s rather than the early 80s.
So what we're trying to do then is, on top of just basic maintenance, we're trying to accrue some money to do phase 3 with that, which is final infrastructure.
Yeah, and so we're still in the process of, I know we've said this a few times, we're still in the process of finalizing those numbers.
Yeah.
So early next year, we'll be able to bring some final numbers and proposals for funding for that. But that is outside of the rate structure completely and outside of the revenue and the operating budget that we're presenting.
Okay, Councilmember Finch.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one question that, since the cruise ship projects come up, I've been getting asked about, is with all the work that you guys, and I don't know what all you guys do, I mean, you guys are slinging stuff everywhere. Is there any way of postponing any of the work that needs to be done until the contractors come in and you could work together to save money? Or is there complete separate entities you guys have to do?
It would have to be separate entities due to the federal funding.
I just wanted to.
I see where from federal.
Being asked that,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's a great idea, but there's a lot of parameters within that federal funding, and since we're not doing the non-federal match ourselves, it would have to be completely separate.
Okay. So we've spent considerable time on this one item. We've got, what, 5 or 6 other items tonight. Are there any further things that you want to bring up? Because we have a lot to do in a few more hours. Administration, I'm seeing.
Yeah, just a quick note, the city attorney is back if you want to
I
get
know.
that.
What I'm going to suggest, if we are done with this particular item until the next public hearing, I want us to take a 5-minute break because some people have been asking for that.
Okay.
So 5-minute break, we'll be back in 5 minutes and we'll go to the attorney's report and then begin the rest of the business.
Thank you, Brian.
Back on the air.
Okay, I'm going to bring us back to order. We're going back onto the record now with the attorney's report. There he is, and make it short.
I was already told to keep it short, so
okay.
sorry I had to step out there. I will keep it really short. Last month was busy. That might not appear on here, but much of our service is covered under a flat rate, and last month was a good month for the city to be operating on a flat rate. Worked out well. The couple that I'll just touch on are, one I know everybody's aware of is the McDonald lawsuit, and that is, there was a trial this summer. And we're finally at the point of we have a judgment in our favor and have moved for attorney's fees. That's on the judge's desk, and I won't speculate as to what the judge could do because I just don't need to. We should know in a little bit. The only thing I would note about that is I forget when the suit was, but I think it started maybe summer 2023. Yeah, 2020. Yeah. So those things, that's kind of normal timing, and it just takes a while for those to play out. The one other I wanted to mention, I'm hopeful we'll see some movement. Under Port and Harbor, there has long been a note about an abandoned vessel. That's up by, it's on a city tideland lease up by that McDonald property that the lawsuit was about. It has nothing to do with Mr. McDonald, but that is, we've been trying to work with that owner for a couple of years. We finally brought a lawsuit, kind of in a almost friendly lawsuit to the extent there is such a thing, to go, you're not getting it done, so we need to put we need some accountability. We've been very flexible even within that, and finally just said, look, we sued you because nothing's getting done, so you're going to have to act accordingly. We cranked up the heat a little bit in the last month or so. So hopefully there's some movement on that. It's kind of been in that same status in that report for a while, but it's trying to balance, like, if it's somebody who's from out of town of kind of limited means and has a problem in Seward, it only does us so much good to clobber them with fines or fees. At some point, it's in our best interest. The city's been very good about, when we do these things, it's ultimately about compliance. And the city's always reasonable about that. I always appreciate that. That's the approach we've been trying to do, but at some point, we're starting to turn the heat up a little bit on that one. So that's about all I have in very quick fashion, given the busy schedule tonight. And again, I apologize I had to go out of order there. I just had to take a long call with another city council, unfortunately.
Well, we appreciate you being here. Are there questions for the attorney? It was a good report, though. We have it in the packets. Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to more business. I believe where we are now, we are at the introduction of Ordinance 2024-014, correct, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct.
Okay, so would you please not only read this into the record, but also could you give just a quick explanation of what it means to be introduced? Okay.
Yes, certainly. The introduction of an ordinance it's not going to be enacted tonight. If it passes the introduction, it'll come back on the next meeting, November 25th, for a public hearing and enactment. It's just a two-step process that
And
we
I
follow.
think people didn't understand that, so.
And the introduction of Ordinance 2024-014, revising Seward City Code Section 5.45.015A, Hotel Motel Room Tax, levy of tax to increase the hotel motel tax rate from 4% to 8%, effective January 1st, 2025.
Okay, thank you. So what I would need is a move to introduce and a second, please.
I'll move for the introduction of Ordinance 2024-014.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Administration, what would you like to say about this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This introduction of an ordinance would give the council the opportunity to speak to the increase of the hotel motel bed tax rate from 4% to 8%. If you sorry, if you go to page something in your 26 in your packet, we detail some of the thoughts behind that, including the potential for the Kenai Peninsula Borough to enact their own, as well as the city looking to diversify revenue in a way that minimizes the burden on residents. So this was a refrain that we heard often throughout the budget process earlier this year as well. And so this is the revenue stream we were bringing forward to correspond with some of the increased expenses that we were also bringing forward in our FY 25-26 budget. So just to clarify, this vote would be a yes or no on whether or not to introduce the ordinance. So the conversation would in itself be along the similar lines, not whether or not you agree or disagree with the bed tax ordinance at this time.
It's just about the introduction.
The introduction of it.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'll bring it back to council, and it was Councilmember Finch who took it off the consent agenda, is that correct?
Yes.
So, but we're just speaking to whether it should be introduced or not, basically, at this moment.
Councilmember Wells did a pretty nice job explaining an alternative that I would think we should really look at. You know, because instead of just right off jumping up on it like we're doing, if the Machichi tax doesn't go through, I fully agree with what he's saying. That's why I pulled it after reading this, going, because I don't think the public got enough. Would you like to explain that, Mr. Wells?
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember Finch. So again, there's a couple documents over there, one from the 9th that I gave to council and made a public document, and then one that I presented today and made a public document. The one on the 9th, I think there's a, we keep talking about the possibility of the borough increasing a bed tax, but it was also brought up on the state level, and in that document there are the links where you can pull that up. And so what I'm recommending is that we forego enacting a bed tax at this time, just because I believe that we can fully fund the wage study by adjusting our revenue income projections. But I think that it's a discussion that we have to have regarding the bed tax and being prepared for either the state or the borough, because it's not just the borough talking about it. It has been brought forward in April by the state as well. And I don't know what industry you're in, but I think that we would all agree that if there's going to be a tax implemented, I want it to stay right here at home. And that's what I detailed in, I think it's a 12-page document that's over there. And so that's my recommendation. And that's what the paperwork is about. So making the, forecasting the revenue closer to the 2023 and or adjusting the amount that goes to the hospital fund.
Okay. Councilmember Barnwell.
I was wondering if the administration would speak to Mr. Lawrence's laydown here. If the borough were to increase it to 12%, and we have increased it to 8%, but we already have a city sales tax of 4%, a borough sales tax of 3%, does that mean that the borough could only collect 1%? Or no, they would, how does that work? I don't understand that. I thought there was a cap on the amount they could charge.
So in the previous proposal, they were going to implement a 12% bed tax rate, and it would cap municipalities at 6%. And so based off of, if the similar proposal came around again, I would assume that they would cap it at whatever the higher rate was, which would, if this passes and go forward, then 8%.
Just bed tax?
Just bed tax, not sales tax, no.
So the borough could conceivably raise it up to 12% in addition to?
In addition to our sales tax, not in addition to the bed tax already implemented.
Okay.
That being said, as mentioned, it's hypothetical, so as that conversation progressed, we could keep tabs on it and see where it goes.
Yeah.
But the proposal put forth previously was a 12% Kenai Peninsula borough-wide bed tax that would have 6% going to the local municipalities and the remaining 6% going to the borough. That being, sorry, I was gonna make a, because then they would collect it too, which is nice.
I do want to go on the record as I do have a lot of concern for the discrepancy between the cities. It's very onerous on the owners of city, bed taxes owners of the city versus the outside of the city rentals, short-term rentals. So.
Question for administration. One of our options tonight, and it's a big one because the only thing we're voting on tonight is whether to introduce this or not.
Yeah.
If we were to vote no, what might you come back with in our budget to make up the difference?
Wonderful hypothetical
I know
question.
that's a very hypothetical
So based off of our previous discussion too, in the budget public comment, I would come back with a proposal that brings our sales tax revenue up to probably $7.8 million to still stay within that conservative range of not going too high over what last year's was. We did get the most recent sales tax data for FY24. As mentioned earlier, we haven't seen Q3 yet, so we're not 100% sure where that lies. So we can come back with an increased sales tax revenue, which is a change in our policy from having an incremental of 8%. It would be about a 24% increase in revenue projection, which then I believe would then I would have to do some double checking to make sure everything covers. We might have to cut a few things here and there to make that fit, but I think with that proposed amendment, we could make it fit in some way, shape, and form and still withhold the wage study results as well in their current form.
Well, personally, I don't think I've heard a single person speak highly of this proposition. So, and we have the ability to just say to stop it right now and try to find a better way. So I'm just throwing that out there. Vice Mayor Osenka.
On that note of just voting it down and then bringing something back up, work-wise, time-wise, budget-wise, is it something that we can amend when we started getting into the discussion of it, instead of dropping it and trying to build something new from scratch?
Yeah, so you have two options. You could, and administration will follow that course of action that you choose. You can say tonight, no, we do not want to introduce this. We don't want to talk about it anymore. Tonight was enough. Bring back a proposed amendment next week that changes that in the budget. And that is what we will do, and we will bring that back, and I will do everything in my power and my fiber and my being to make sure that the wage study stays the same within that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the revenue comes from. I'm kind of on board with the council of making sure that those wages are adjusted in the appropriate way. There will be changes to the budget, so I will have to bring forth a document that details what those proposed amendments are, and then council themselves will have to bring forth those proposed amendments, discuss those proposed amendments, and vote yes or no on them. You could also, so that's option one, nix this right now, and then we'll bring back a list of proposed amendments. Option two is don't nix it, continue the conversation, but then we'll also probably bring back proposed amendments just in case it continues and then fails.
Right, because we will have a public, if we introduce this, the next meeting, there will be a public hearing.
Yep.
And you could bring back, then we would know how to tweak it better.
Yeah, and so if it was introduced and we came back at the next council meeting with the input from tonight, we would adjust the date of implementation, making sure that any previous contracts or bookings already made weren't impacted by this, and fine-tuning it. So we would also work on that over the next 2 weeks as well.
I had Vice Mayor
So-
Osenka, then I could.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one follow-up. You said adjust the sales tax in the budget to what? And what were you actually, what were you projecting, and what were you going, and if you move this?
Yeah.
What are the numbers, I guess?
So in 2023 and 2024, we projected $6.5 million. And you'll be able to see this on page 99 of your packet, at the very top line, 4,000. And so in 2023 and 2024, we projected $6.5 million. In 2023, we saw actuals of $7.8 million. And so this year, when we were creating this budget, we kept that conservative mindset of about an 8% increase each year, recognizing that there's volatility in sales tax numbers. There's also volatility in bed tax numbers. There's volatility in all numbers. So we stuck with a conservative 8% increase, although we saw those actuals come in higher. So if we were to adjust it, it would be I would probably adjust it to the actuals from 2023, which would be a 24% increase over our budgeted in 2024.
Which the numbers are,
6.5 million to 7.8 million.
and what were you budgeting for that?
7 million. So it's an additional $800,000 in
You're
revenue.
budgeting over what you think we're going to get, or you're budgeting 800,000?
I would budget
over?
exactly what we made in 2023,
Would be. Oh, sorry.
Right,
based off of the amendment, yes.
so you're saying there's an $800,000 cushion there, basically. If we somehow don't manage to make that, then we'll have to do some drastic
So that's the
work.
risk versus reward. We've been conservative in the projections with the mindset that, oh no, we might not hit that number that we projected. And that's been the policy for a few budget cycles now. We could move away from that and take our previous year or our 2023 actuals and budget according to that and say this is what we anticipate. And so it would be a policy shift, and it would be more in line with the revenue that we're bringing in. But it is also the understanding that if it drops below that, we will not have that revenue. That all being said, oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You had, was it, your hand? No.
The only thing I was
Oh,
going to
Councilmember
ask is if you did that, you're going to have the numbers for the third quarter by Friday.
We will have
So
the numbers for third
You
quarter.
can have a better idea
Mhm.
too, okay.
And we can be more, we can fine tooth it a little bit more too, which will be nice to have that.
Councilmember Barnwell.
I like that idea a lot, personally. The other thing that I would like to see this, just stay on keep the conversation going until at least the next public hearing, personally, just to vet it more carefully, make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. For instance, I think it would be interesting to talk to the borough. I know Homer was talking about this last week at their meeting, where they brought up the idea of a bed tax. If the borough institutes a 12% bed tax, there's got to be something in there that, why wouldn't all these towns and cities throughout Kenai all of a sudden go, well, we're going to jump ours to 12% right now? So there's got to be, I would be interested to do a little homework on that and to see how that might work.
Yeah, there's differentials there with home rule cities and other things, and I think the lawyer just saw me look at him thinking through it, so I'm going to look away. So in the proposal, and returning back to the understanding that it was just a proposal that spurred this conversation, in the proposal it was a 6% automatically given to the municipalities within the borough, and then the rest of the areas would be that 12%. So past city limits, the borough would collect that full 12%. Within city limits, we would get 6%, the borough would get 6%. And so I think if you're looking at more of a local municipality level, we are actually the only municipality on the Kenai Peninsula that does collect bed tax, which, I totally recognize the way that shifts the numbers when you look at that. So in some regards, there's been communities that have been fighting to implement a bed tax for several years, like Homer, that would see that opportunity to be like, oh, yay, this is our way to get a bed tax in a different manner than bringing it through this public process. So
Okay.
it's just me speaking hypothetically and candidly of what I think the other municipalities' thought processes are, not based off of any conversations or realities.
Okay, Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. I'll make it quick. In response to Councilmember Osenga and Councilmember Barnwell, as far as leaving it on for the next meeting, the amount of time that it's going to take our administration to recalculate and refigure and come back with a proposal that I'm quite sure our citizens have spoken about in opposition, I wonder if there's not a better place for them to put their time. If we take it off now and say we're done with it, then administration can focus on how we're going to fund this wage study. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. That was what I was trying to say. Councilmember Finch.
Thank you, Mayor. To follow off of what Councilmember Wells says, I mean, we could come back, and let's say the borough, like it says right, the borough or the state starts to implement it, and it's going that way, we could come back with something to increase it to.
I do believe it would have to be 90 days. Councilmember Peck. Everybody's a council member in my head now. No, sorry. What is that regulation?
Yeah, the defeated legislation rule does have that time limit on it unless council directs administration to bring it back.
Yeah. So if this was to get defeated tonight and anything happened within the next 90 days, which I'm pretty sure would not, council would have to direct us to bring it back. But yes.
Okay. So are we ready to vote on the introduction of Ordinance 2024-014? You might emphasize what a yes vote means and a no vote means, Mr. Clerk.
The yes vote would approve the introduction of this ordinance, and if that intro passes, then this will be on the November 25th agenda for a public hearing and enactment. A no vote would fail the introduction, and that would, you would not see it on the next agenda.
Okay.
Be a done deal.
Ready to vote? Yes.
Voting on the introduction of Ordinance 2024-014. Barnwell?
Yes.
Finch?
No.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Osenga?
No.
Wells?
No.
Warner?
Yes.
And Mayor McCoy?
I'll be a no vote.
So we have 3 yes votes and 4 no votes, so that introduction of that ordinance has failed.
Okay, wow, that's public process as it happens. And now we move along to other business. What do we have next? Next we have resolution, this is down in new business resolutions number 1. Resolution 2024-060, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, keep me honest here. Would you please read that into the record, please?
Resolution 2024-060, accepting the proposed classification and compensation study.
Okay, and you can find that on page 194. And I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2024-060.
I'll approve.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded of administration. Oh, right. I am sorry. Before we vote on that, yes, Councilmember Kreitz, what would you state?
A conflict of interest, it's my husband would be benefiting from the pay increase.
Okay, and I would agree that you do have a conflict of interest based on that for this one, so you would not be involved in the discussion and
Or the voting.
or the voting, right? I think we've decided before, though, that you could stay up in your seat, or do you have?
There's no extra seats out there for her.
I know,
She's got nowhere to go.
so you do have a conflict, okay. We did have a motion to approve in a second, however. So now,
Great.
administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in front of you is the resolution corresponding to the wage study that we presented at our council meeting, council work session a few weeks ago. And this wage study incorporates a total of about an 8% increase. That 8% increase is not across the board. There are some positions that see less, there are some positions that see more. Some of the things that we focused on was increasing the wages to our public safety, as you heard from several police officers who struggle, and we struggle to recruit and hire police officers in those positions because of the high wages, or low wages. Something I would like to clarify that we heard often throughout public comment is that This was a wage study, not a compensation study. Wages are the direct monetary payment an employer receives for their work. Compensation is the entire package. We are directed every 3 years to do a wage study. Compensation-wise, yes, our employees have good health insurance benefits that are paid entirely by the city of Seward. That being said, if you look at other municipalities across the state with comparable positions and comparable wages, or other good comparisons, Homer has a 90-10 split where the municipality pays 90% of their health insurance versus a 10, but they also receive 40 hours of sick leave a year. We do not have sick leave, we only have personal leave. Cordova has 95 and a 5% split. They also receive a week of sick leave and maternity leave. We do not have either of those. Kenai has an 87-13 health insurance split. They also offer a $20,000 hiring bonus to any police officer that starts, and a 4% supplemental retirement on top of the PERS system. Palmer has an 80-20 split. We're doing better than them on compensation. Soldotna is 90-100, which would account for about $100 each month based off of their HR. So each employee pays about $100 a month, which is a total of about $1,200 a year, which would be a difference of 25 cents an hour when broken down across an entire year. But they also provide employee match in their retirement as well. So when you think about the broader scheme of compensation, that's definitely something we can look into in the long run. But when we were focusing on this, we removed that aspect because it's so variable to be comparable, and it's also variable from person to person. My compensation package as a single female with no family is very different than Jason's compensation package with a family of 4, not to call you out. So I think we're looking at this in a very black and white way, because sometimes wages have to be looked at in a black and white way, and we are seeing that our employees have not had an increase over the course of an increase comparable to CPI over the course of the last 24 years. All that being said, I would ask you to postpone this resolution so that we can fine-tune some of those other conversations we had in the budget and discuss it again at the next council meeting to make sure that we're able to reach that full number in that wage study with the lack of a bed tax, so that we aren't stretching ourselves to any limits that we're not able to meet revenue-wise and expense-wise, and so that we can come back and say, yes, this works, and yes, we have the money for it.
Okay.
And that's my spiel.
So we could just streamline things right now and I ask for a motion to postpone till the next meeting without any kind of negative twist on that.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to postpone resolution 2024-060.
I'll second that.
Okay, and that would be till the next meeting, November
25th.
25th. Okay, discussion on postponement. Sounds like necessary thing after what we just did. I know everybody's, Anyway, are we ready to vote on postponement then? Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Voting to postpone resolution 2024-060 until November 25th. Kreitz? Oh, sorry.
See? I'm the only one.
Wells? Wells?
Oh, yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been postponed.
Perfect, thank you. So now we have Resolution 2024-061. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you please read that?
Resolution 2024-061, authorizing the city manager to establish a full-time paid firefighter/EMT position in the fire department.
Okay. Did you want, okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve in a second.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-061.
I'll second.
Any administration?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite Chief Kreitz up to speak to this.
Madam Mayor, Council, thanks. October 17th, 2022, I was up here and gave you a laydown telling you how desperate we are for help, for volunteers, and requesting a paid firefighter. In '22, the council approved one position, and I had notified in the laydown to council that in '23 I would be asking for a second position, and then in '24 a third position. 3 people allows me to have 24/7 coverage at the fire station. 1, 2 people, you know, that's daytime, some weekends covered, but it's not getting us the 24. I want to show you something that my wife discovered. How far we've been kicking this down the road. These are council meeting minutes from August 15th, 1960 that talks about they need to hire 2 paid firefighters to cover the daytime and 1 paid firefighter to cover nighttime. That still hasn't happened, and it's 2024, 64 years later. So what I'm asking is, and I know budgets are tight and we're trying to spend less, is I'm asking for either an amendment to this resolution, or if we need to postpone it to the next meeting so that we can plug numbers in. But I'm asking for not just 1, but 2 additional firefighter EMTs to provide coverage for the city of Seward. Just give you a little bit of background. Right now, we have a great group of volunteers, about 25 on the roster, a bunch of young, new people that are raring to go. But just like you and I'm sure you don't want me calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning every time I have to get up and go get grandma off the floor and help somebody. 56 times so far this year, it's been a sole responder, either myself, the deputy chief, or exempt positions. We don't get compensated for this. We're getting up at 2 in the morning to run these calls, allowing our volunteers to sleep because they like their sleep. That was 56 times, and then 52 times it was us and our spouse. So you're getting 2 people kind of for free every night, and it's kind of wearing on us. Having somebody at the station 24 hours, not only is it important for emergency responses, where seconds save lives, getting to a scene of cardiac arrest or heart attack, being able to get them on an AED, being able to start CPR, seconds matter. And when volunteers are having to drive from home, and maybe in Forest Acres, into town to get the truck and respond out, it's really not practical for the patient. Same thing with fires. I talked to you about how fast fires grow. So getting someone en route immediately is very imperative. Also, having somebody at the station. Councilmember Barnwell mentioned, yes, our station is literally falling in around us. Coming in, finding, your water main is busted. Things like that shouldn't go unseen for 24, 48 hours. They need to be caught right away. We've had one of our batteries in one of the engines almost explode over the weekend. It was overheating, and we came in Monday morning to smell the sulfur and found it just before, and it was swelled up like this. So having someone checking the trucks, checking equipment daily, being there 24, 48 hours, it's imperative. It's also going to save overtime. We do allow Fire Marshal Mallory and Firefighter Woodard to take some call. That's 2 hours minimum of standby overtime, and then if there's a call, it's 2 additional minimum hours of overtime paid. So this would help cut down some of the overtime on that. Trying to remember from this one, from 2022, we have went from, 292 calls is when I was asking you for that firefighter position, and we've toppled 500 now. So just in 2 years, we've doubled our call volume. So the emergencies aren't slowing down. They're not going away. I was going to bring, Andrea Woodard is our treasury for the volunteers. We talked about doing some shift work, and she just wanted to make some comments on the last time that we tried to implement some shift work, meaning paying volunteers.
Madam Mayor, City Council. My name is Andrea Woodard. I've been with the Seward Volunteer Fire Department for over 10 years now. I've been the treasurer for the board for 6. Back when COVID hit, we were awarded the CARES grant, and that's when our station work started. We allowed some of our volunteers to come in and help do some of the duties around the station. That money was gone midway through 2022. The station work is separate from our call stipends that money that we get from the city. We do not bring in the funding needed to cover a fair compensation for a fully staffed overnight work shift. The budgeted money for the shift work that we do currently do comes from community support and sales from our swag, so t-shirts and so on. But we must ensure that those who could volunteer are fully qualified. As of right now, we only have one member who is fully qualified to do that overnight shift. And that's if his travel arrangements actually allow for it. It would take time to get, time and money for training to get more volunteers up to what they need to be qualified to cover these shifts. So.
Okay, thank you. You're not done.
Yeah, and just another, kind of talking point as far as being able to hire 2 people at one time instead of one now and maybe one in another year or a year and a half, 2 years, is saving money on training, sending them off to training at the same time. They're sharing the same rental car, they're sharing the same hotel room, or it's just a shared cost in general to be able to train somebody up and running at one time. Do you have any questions for me?
Questions? Councilmember Barnwell.
Couple things. One, can you just for the record, you have 500 calls. Obviously, those aren't all fire calls.
No, sir. We go on all EMS and fire calls, so all medical calls. We respond to help SFAC. Just this year, we've whether they were down somebody or it was a bad patient, we've had to drive the ambulance in 14 times so far this year. So yeah, most, I would say 88% of the time it's a medical call. I think I said it during the work session, and I can't remember, we've had 12 fires.
Right.
Oh no, we just had another one, so 13 fires this year. True fires.
So are you required as a fireman to go on the ambulance calls, or is that just protocol that you've made?
It's protocol that we're there to help the community. We have AEDs, we have first aid kits, and it is a volunteer agency with the ambulance service, so we want to get there fast, get stuff started before they can arrive and transport them.
And then the last question is, for a town of comparable size in Alaska, about 3,000, have you looked at other towns to see what kind of staffing they have?
I have. Most of the other towns, they also have, they run their ambulance service, and so it's a little bit of different staffing as far as they're going to put 2 on an ambulance at all times, and then typically have 1 firefighter on a fire truck. So they have quite a few more firefighters, like say in Homer, not Cordova, Skagway. Skagway has 2 on the ambulance and 1 firefighter.
Okay.
And Cordova was, I think, the same. They were pretty similar. But yeah, they're staffing the ambulance first, so they're already starting with 2. So I'm just trying to start with 1 now, meaning 2 per day. So that would be, 6 people just for the ambulance. So 3 shifts, so 2, 4, 6. And then the 3 firefighters would be, so 9 full-time is a typical city of this size.
Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to make a motion to postpone Resolution 2024-061. I am in full support and understanding of what the chief has to say, and I'd like to try to take the time to find that funding.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
I'd second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion on postponement. If we do vote to postpone, what has been put in the budget so far is for one position, correct?
Yeah, so to clarify kind of the logistical background of the conversation that we're having right now, so we were tasked by council to bring back a resolution that would add one firefighter position. And that firefighter position resolution, sorry, I'm going to pull up the page in the addendum. That creates an expenditure in amount of $104,000 a year. So looking forward to add a second one for FY24 or FY25 and 26 would be an additional $104,000 a year. So for a total of $208,000.
Just so we would know, have a ballpark. But the discussion is to postpone or not postpone. And
may I recommend postponing, but or instead of postponing, directing us to bring back a resolution that has two instead, so that we can, if that's the intent and the goal of postponing, so that we are directed to bring back that as well.
I can change my motion.
Okay, well, let me just go to the motion maker first.
I would like to amend my motion to postpone resolution 2024-061 and amending the motion to postpone resolution 2024-061 so that administration can come back with a resolution to add an additional firefighter. So we would have two firefighter positions in the budget.
Does the second, who did the second for that? Do you agree with that amendment?
I was looking at just the one because I want to make sure the budget can sustain, or bring the motion back showing one and the two, and if the sustainability is there.
Okay, so that sounds like you don't agree with the amendment to.
I agree a partial amendment but for one, not two. I think we should just postpone it, but.
I'm going to send it back to the motion maker, I guess.
I'm going to leave the motion as stated.
As for two.
Correct.
Okay, so is there a second for the motion to postpone but come back with the numbers for two additional firefighters? I'm asking for a second for that specific motion.
Can I ask a question before we second it?
Yes.
You should second the motion and then we can discuss it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
Okay.
Now we can talk about it. Yes, Councilmember Barnwell.
Can we just postpone the decision and to have the discussion about whether we want one or two? Does it have to be a number? I mean, we're talking about, the topic is establishing full-time paid firefighters or firefighter. Do we have to have a number in there?
All positions need to be created by a resolution, so we would need to have a resolution associated with it between one or two.
And let me just say, the current resolution we're discussing establishes one. And the proposal in the motion is to postpone to the next meeting and come back with a resolution that provides for two.
Okay. Mayor McClure, if I may just offer a suggestion, just to throw this out there. You could vote on the resolution tonight, and then if it passes, you could direct administration to bring back another resolution for the second position on the 25th. And you,
wow, that's a great idea.
I was trying to figure a way to say that.
Yeah.
You know, one on lockdown, and then
Thank you.
That's why he's the clerk.
So.
Can you tell me what to say again?
Well, I think it would be, I'm going to get to Councilmember Warner, but I think it would be a matter of just withdrawing the motion to amend. Is that correct? Or postpone? But let me, since we're still on that motion, do you have something related to the postponement?
Yeah, I think I just kind of feel that moving forward with the resolution to establish a full-time paid firefighter EMT position, I would like to see what the numbers are after coming back with, this was originally proposed when we had some of the revenue from the additional bed tax, the ordinance with the increase in the 4% bed tax. So I would feel, I mean, we didn't approve the wage study because of that, and I feel that I would not want to also approve the full-time position without seeing what those new numbers are going to be coming back at.
Okay, you have a response, Madam City Manager. I think we still have to sort of discuss the postponement, however, but is it appropriate to answer that question?
Yeah, I think so. Does it matter if it is postponed for that reason?
Yeah, okay, so Madam City Manager.
I forget where we are. I would recommend right now voting down, now that we have the clerk's great suggestion. How about we vote down the motion to postpone and bring back the as a revised amendment? So I would recommend just voting down that motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, and then we can bring it back to the main discussion and then go from there.
Okay.
Is that agreed? Okay, so could we restate the motion and then we'll vote on that?
So we will do a roll call vote for the motion to postpone this resolution and to have it brought back in the form of 2 firefighter positions. So this is voting on just that motion to postpone. So Finch?
Yes.
Nope. Sorry.
Sorry. So a yes vote would postpone it, a no vote would fail to postpone it, and we'd go back to the original.
Yeah, no.
Osenga?
No.
Warner?
No.
Wells?
No.
Barnwell?
No.
Kreitz?
No.
And Mayor McClure?
No.
Okay, so the amendment to postpone has failed and the main motion is back on the floor.
Okay. So the main motion is, as it states in the packet, to fund a full-time paid firefighter EMT position 1.
Great.
And
And so to speak to the concerns about the budgeting, the reason why I would request that we postpone the budgeting on the wage study is because that is a significantly higher amount. At this point in time, I'm fully confident in our ability to fund this one additional position. So if the council would like to have those discussions, that funding expenditure would not be overwhelmingly impactful to the general fund operating budget. Recognizing that it is part of the larger budget conversation, so postponing it is valid, but I do also have I really enjoy clerk's, sorry, I keep wanting to call you a council member, Chris's recommendation of discussing this one tonight and either passing or not, and then bringing back an additional one for an additional firefighter. So, but to clarify, I'm fully confident from an administrative standpoint of funding this expenditure in that full amount.
Okay, so if we were to vote now, it would be voting yes or no on this exact resolution for one position, and then we could make direction to come back with another, and we'd at least have the one within the budget, which would be my recommendation at this point, I think. Are we ready to vote? Councilmember Finch.
My one concern on this is, can the town budgeting and everything sustain that many more firefighters 3-5 years from now?
Well, that's a concern. Any discussion further?
I would like to that also kind of remember that we did get rid of 5 jail positions as well, so.
Right, we have that. Okay, are we?
Yeah, I just want to say that our trend is
Councilmember
from
Barnwell.
300 to 500. The trend is moving so far in that direction. I agree with Julie.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Okay, so
Mr. Clerk.
voting on the approval of resolution 2024-061. Osenga?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay, now we're back up
Thank you,
to one that was taken off the consent agenda. That would be resolution 2024-062. And when you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you please read that?
Resolution 2024-062, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of the Kenai Peninsula in the amount of $170,000 and appropriating funds.
Okay, I'd need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-062.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution would authorize the city manager to enter an agreement with Boys and Girls Club. We do currently operate under an agreement with the Boys and Girl Club for an amount of $185,000, and we also had previously given them an additional $25,000 a year as an in-kind or as a donation. In talking to the Boys and Girls Club and what they are able to offer through staffing and some of the difficulties that they've seen, we had worked towards a new solution of the Parks and Rec Department taking back that teen youth center location and doing events and programming out of there, while the Boys and Girls Club would still do that K through 5. So while this does look like a cut overall from our operational budget and payments to the Boys and Girls Club, it's also a cut in services. It would be bringing down their services as well. And so I think some of the concerns that were brought forth tonight are definitely ones that we want to incorporate into the contract. In an effort not to sound like a broken record, I would ask that City Council postpone this so that the Parks and Rec Director Mel Howes and I can go over to Kenai and Soldotna and meet with the Boys and Girls Club in person and talk through some of these concerns that we're seeing, because it is beneficial in the long haul for our community to have this resource.
Thank you. I was going to suggest that because we need to hear from Boys and Girls Club. That's the bottom line. So I would actually move. I can actually make a motion, can't I? Whoa. I'll move to postpone Resolution 2024-062 until the next meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, and we can discuss postponement. And I know that Councilmember Finch, you brought it off the consent agenda, but maybe this will help. So.
Well, first off, thank you, Madam Mayor, but I would really like to thank young Bailey Smith coming out in front of all of these adults. I mean, that's our future of Seward, and we need to keep, I've lived here 30 years, spent the last 5 years every day at school picking up my grandson, and we all know about the early releases, how many people are losing pay, I've watched parents up there shuffling kids around with friends trying to figure out where to go. We need this Boys and Girls Club. This is our future. If we don't focus on our year-round local future, we're going to just be a dead tourist town.
Okay, thanks. And I watched the same thing. The motion is to postpone. Any discussion on that? Yes, Councilmember Warner.
I like the idea of postponing this resolution. I would like to ask, I'm not sure exactly how to do this, but I would like to ask that administration is able to come back with a couple of key points that I have found in this contract that I think would be very beneficial for our youth and our community. Transportation is provided at 2 other clubhouses on the Kenai Peninsula. Currently, we have many families that are having to choose between allowing their children to access after-school sports at the elementary level or attend Boys and Girls Club. Sports get out at 3:45. Lots of parents don't get off till 5. There's no transportation into the after-school care program that we have with the Boys and Girls Club. I would like to see some transportation to ensure that athletics is something that we are encouraging for our youth. Also, I would like to advocate for community representation on the Boys and Girls Club board. Currently, there are no Seward representatives on that board, and I feel that there are other positions held for city representatives on other boards, so I'd like to see that as well.
Okay, do we have a sort of consensus to direct administration to look into that? Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, ready to vote on postponing till the next meeting. It's redundancy, but okay.
Okay, voting on the postponement. Kreitz?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been postponed until the next meeting.
Okay, we have one further resolution and a discussion, and then we're done. This is Resolution 2024-064, and when you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you read that?
Resolution 2024-064, authorizing the city manager to approve amendment number 1 to the independent contractor agreement with Selena Soto for GIS technical services.
Okay, I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2024-064.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve administration. I think I see some administration coming in.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite Community Development Director Danny to speak to this to start.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Selena Soto has been a tremendous asset to the city as a GIS specialist, and she's homegrown in the sense that she started as a city employee scanning documents for the community development department before the city realized she was developing her own professional skills as a GIS specialist. And I believe there was a conversation at one point where she was like, I could save the city's paying a lot of money for these specialists, and I could save the city a lot of money for doing it cheaper. And so after agreeing to have her start working on GIS projects, it was found out that not only was she saving the city money, but her end product was higher quality than the city was receiving through other GIS contractors. And so when Selena decided to move away from Seward, it was a priority to retain her services, which is why she was hired as an independent contractor. So our office is bringing forth this resolution as we are the main point of contacts for Selena in her role as an independent contractor, but she works on a variety of projects with many of the city departments, all which have amazing things to say about her work. So I'll briefly walk through the resolution, and then we've got Courtney, the city planner, who's had the opportunity to work with her before when she was a city employee. And so before Selena was contracted, the city was paying as much as an astronomical $220 an hour for GIS services to Flow Analytics. And historically, the city has contracted GIS services for the past 2 decades at rates between $95 and $130 per hour. The proposed rate in the amendment, $80 an hour, falls well below the low end of that range. In addition, the city recently extended its contract with R&M, which charges a rate range of $105 to $165 per hour for their 5 GIS specialist tiers. And so again, this proposed amended rate would fall well below the low end of that tier. Since the start of this contract, Selena has increased the scope of her work and skill set significantly and has completed her master degree program in geospatial information systems and received a certificate in geospatial programming and web map development. This rate would also allow Selena to pursue further certifications and training opportunities to expand her portfolio, further benefiting the city. And the spirit of Selena's original contract was to employ someone who would provide high quality work and institutional knowledge while providing the city significant savings. And even with this requested increase, I think the rate still honors that original intent. Personally, I think it's great that someone from Seward, who was a former Seward resident and employee of the city, had such a strong and positive connection to this town that she desires to help Seward develop in a positive way during this portion of her career. As a professional, I'm constantly impressed with all the positive feedback we received from the many departments about the high quality of her work. And as a very small town, finally, I do believe that finding another GIS specialist with her educational background, with her skill set, who has institutional knowledge of this town and would be willing to work at the rate we are proposing, not the rate she's currently making, but proposing, would be like finding a needle in a haystack. And so I'd really like to stress the importance of maintaining this partnership, and I think this is a great way the city can be proactive in maintaining an essential and hopefully potential long-term relationship. And I'll turn it over to Courtney now, who can talk a little bit about their working relationship.
Good evening, council members. Thank you. I personally worked with Selena for the past 3 years, ever since she first started working for the city of Seward, and now as she's been working as a contractor. She's very skilled and knowledgeable in the field of GIS. And while she was a city employee, there were multiple occasions where we'd hired a GIS contractor to do a specific project for the city, but always after a short period of time working with the contractor, we ended up canceling those contracts to allow Selena to complete the work because she would always do it more efficiently and effectively. All of the GIS contractors we've hired, both in-state and out-of-state, charge substantially more than $80 an hour and take much longer to complete the projects that we need to get done. It's hard to find an independent contractor for any type of work who is reliable, honest, and hardworking. Selena is all of these qualities and absolutely worth compensating at a higher hourly rate that is more competitive and reflective of the quality of work she is performing for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to add that part of this increase is coming from her increased work with our electric department, and invite either Taylor or Brian to come up to speak to her work in that realm.
Feels good to stand up for a minute. Taylor Crocker, Operations Manager. Madam Mayor, members of the council. I have to say I'm probably responsible for about 50% or better now of her workload. So the cool thing about GIS is it takes all the data, like the age of our poles, fuses, the phases that we're working on, and models that out for you so that when you're planning work, you can actually save money. Good example of that is she's helping take this LiDAR data that we got from Nash Road. So it's like a 3D model of this transmission project. All that information comes back into our GIS, and we can figure out exactly where those wires are. You know, they're going over driveways and everything. So we know if we have to change the pole out or if we can defer that. We're taking the overstory, that other scan that you approved earlier this year, and creating a heat map in GIS so that when we start with our vegetation management program again, we can hit all the heat map, the most critical areas, instead of just going like mile by mile down the transmission. So we're starting with like the trees that are actually touching the lines and working our way out so we actually can reclaim the right-of-ways. But Selena and the work that she's been doing is the base of all those other things that we're bringing in to achieve some better data. So anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one last thing I'd like to add, I know Councilmember Wells has given a few laydowns, and on the back of one of them showcases the salaries of GIS people throughout their careers. And something to note is that those are for large corporations that have multiple people in all these positions. Selena is one person acting as the GIS specialist, analyst, LiDAR analyst, CAD engineer, and all of those positions in one. So at the end of the day, while recognizing that a single employee salary could be filled for a significantly less value, she is doing the work of 3 to 4 employees and doing it very well.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that's our pitch.
I will bring it back to council, and Councilmember Finch, you're the one that pulled this off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Responding to City Manager said, the work ethics, I understand that, but we're a town of 2,800, not 28,000. We originally, if I remember correctly, when we originally did this, this was temporary. This was not long-term contract. She agreed to the contract price, and with most contracts, shouldn't you wait till the contract's up for renewal? I mean, Danny said it best, she was homegrown. With the minds of these young kids today with computers, we can give it a shot to see if we get another homegrown. We did it once, we can do it again and save money and keep that money in state and in town. They were not happy about 110,000 going out, and now we're wanting to send 150,000 out of state, out of town.
Okay, other comments? Vice Mayor Osenga.
I think the point was that it's saving the city money. We have an actual very good product being, or a very good service being provided for the city at a lesser rate, and it's not costing us as much as, I think that should probably be what we're focused on more than where she lives.
Okay, does anyone else want to comment?
I'll make a
Go
quick
ahead.
comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. The document that the city manager is referring to, I actually I didn't share with everybody, but I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research on this pay scale and what the rate of inflation would be, because originally I was against modifying this contract. You know, as a capitalist, obviously, I'm like, hey, you signed it, you're in. But that was before I learned today all of the additional stuff that she's doing on top of her agreed contract. And so, in my opinion, as if I was in her position as a worker, I would be trying to renegotiate my contract as well. And we've had the electric department state how they're now using up 50% of her time, where when she originally created the contract, if I'm correct, there wasn't any of the time. And so, yes, the document that I supplied showed, I believe, with inflation, for it to come out to around $126,000 a year, if I can remember correctly. But that was without taking into consideration the additional workload. So I just wanted to make that really clear.
Okay, thank you. Did you?
Thank you, Mayor. And I understand what you're saying, and I agree, but you're under contract. Okay, how many people sitting in this room we have under contract? He's doing a great job. Are we going to up his pay? It's a contract. Let's stick to the contract. When it comes time for renegotiation, we renegotiate it. Plus, let's see if it fits into this new budget. I would say at least postpone it.
Can I speak to that?
Hold on, one second. Let me get Councilmember
Thank you.
Wells.
I just wanted to ask one question, actually. The contract is not so binding that the person can't walk away from the contract, correct? And so my question is, did this person approach us to renegotiate the contract?
This is the city being proactive with an amazing relationship that we have. You all come from different backgrounds, but I think you could all put yourself in her shoes with her skill set and experience. With your skill sets and experience, if someone came to you and offered you $20 to $30 more per hour, like, what would you do? That'd be a tough sell to turn down. And if that were to happen, then we're back to $220 an hour type rates, or $105 to $165 an hour per rates for people who do not have the institutional knowledge of Seward, which she does. And so this is, I understand the short-term perspective of it is a contract. I'm thinking long-term for our department in the city, and that this is a potential long-term relationship with someone who is so connected to Seward that she moved away and wanted to have a full-time working relationship with this town. And I think that's incredible.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this? Beat it apart. Yes? Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-064. Warner?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay, so the last thing we have is to discuss scheduling a work session regarding the Chamber of Commerce partnership with the city. And it was sponsored by Councilmember Warner, and what we would do is just decide, do we want that, and then set a potential date, I believe. So, do you want to speak to that, Councilmember Warner, first, just briefly, maybe?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to formally discuss scheduling a work session. I think it's important that we have a conversation with the Chamber of Commerce on what it is that we are wanting them to be doing under their contract with the city, and making sure that they're able to meet those goals, and maybe talk about what parts of their programs may need to be fully funded and or removed from their workload. And that's kind of what I'm hoping to get out of the work session.
Did you have a timeline in mind? I mean, like, after Christmas, or before, let's say, after the end of the year, or before the end of the year, or?
I think I might need a little bit more information, because it is currently in the budget, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if we were gonna be looking at any additional funding for the chamber, or removal of any programming to a current contract, because our contract is also up for renewal, I think we might wanna look at it in that same time frame. But if anybody has more information on that since I'm still.
Well, a question would arise too, that what's in our budget's in our budget. If we approve that, we could still modify it after the work session and change things?
Our budget is a fluid document.
It's a fluid
so
document.
if-
I'm just concerned about the amount of meetings and stuff, but what, did you have any input on scheduling? Because I think we should have the work session. It's just a matter of, well, if we give a approval to the work session concept, then maybe you could come back with a time or a schedule, Madam City Manager?
Yeah, I would just ask the council, because there is the deadline of the contract ending, but we can most likely discuss an extension if that's the case. But would ask for guidance on before the end of the year or after the end of the year, because that's a big difference in the way it fits into the budget cycle, but also a big difference in timeline, because we have also put off a lot of work sessions till next year. So we could find a way to do it this year, or we can do it next, depending on availability and time and stamina.
Okay, so I guess the question that we will discuss, this is just a discussion, is do we want this work session before the end of the year? Or wait until, and then just modify the contract, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, any strong ideas? Yes, Councilmember Wells, a strong idea.
My strong idea is that this is a very important discussion to have, and we have a great working relationship with the chamber, and I don't want to put them off. And so I would be willing to schedule a work session as soon as possible. Whatever is convenient with everybody else, but that's my point.
Okay, other, yeah.
I will add one thing. So in our budget planning process, we had created 2 special meetings on November 18th and November 25th that are no longer necessary. So prior to the meeting on November 25th, we do not have a work session. Or
Are you sure?
well, I was going to cancel it.
Oh.
So
I have a work session.
yeah, we don't have Chris, we don't have a work session on November 25th, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what I would recommend is that we cancel that special meeting and we can make the November 25th meeting a work session. If the city, if the chamber.
Wait,
Cancel the special meeting.
which was
It was-
prior to the real meeting?
Prior to the real
Okay,
meeting.
just be clear, we're not
Yeah.
canceling the 25th.
No, so it was.
I know, I just,
It
there was
actually
shock out there.
came up based off of previous budget schedules where us in work sessions were meeting the holes, and I was just a little bit confused about how those shook out. So I scheduled a special meeting. It is no longer necessary. We can transform that into a work session on November 25th.
That would be a 5:30 work session, would that be agreeable on November 25th?
25th?
I'm seeing lots of nods.
Great.
So is that all you need, is nods?
Chris, is that all they need? Great.
Hold on, we've got a hand. Councilman.
I would like to see if we could get their financials so that the public could see where the money, the
I
money's
think they
going.
bring that.
And I mean, to like 2019 forward, so they can show the progress, just like our budget.
If we can do that? Okay, November 25th, 5:30, that way we get snacks before. That's important.
Get another calendar.
All right, and thank you, Councilmember Horner, for doing that. And that takes us to citizen comments. And this is actually, there might be a time limit. I think we have a drop dead time at some point, but it's limited to 5 minutes per person, and citizens can comment on any subject. There's no sign-in for this. Do any citizens feel up to commenting at this point? There's one.
Madam Mayor, Council, Danny Munich, I'm Director of Community Development. I live outside city limits. It's trickled in throughout the meeting, but I did want to mention a couple of things. One, the comprehensive plan surveys are out and available to the public. Everyone should have received a postcard in their mailbox. We're having a kickoff event that's just informal. Come chat with us tomorrow from 5 to 8 at the Tidewater Tap House. We're reaching out to several community organizations. Without a newspaper, that's some of the feedback that we've been getting is how do we spread the word? And so that's kind of a big focus of our office here for the next several months. And so please get in touch with us if you have avenues that you think we could utilize to spread that word. And in the same vein of getting the word out, Planning and Zoning Commission is starting to tackle the housing issues with what is in their realm of Title 15 of the Land Use Code, and so next Tuesday is their next work session that will be devoted to that topic of housing. Under that umbrella, we're bringing up things like building height and parking ratios in town, accessory dwelling units, nothing that we have a firm opinion one way or the other on, but we'd like to formulate those thoughts with community feedback. And so I wanted to mention that at the beginning, citizen comments, but we have a full house, so hopefully people pay attention to the very end. But please feel free to reach out to our office or participate in those upcoming events or meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oops.
Evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I just wanted to say thank you for voting for that.
We need your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Morgan Woodard, I live outside city limits.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for approving the one firefighter position. Chief did a good job talking about like the 1,000-foot view, but as the guy who received the 2022 position, I just want to talk to you about it from the ground level. First off, I love my job. Like, it's the best job in the world. In my opinion, the best department in the city to work for. I love coming to work every day. That being said, the last 2 years I've been drowning. I have a little whiteboard with my work list, and I work constantly from the moment I get to work to the time I come home. Half the time my wife comes in to yell at me because I haven't eaten lunch. And still my whiteboard doesn't move. And that's not counting the daily checks. That's just trying to keep up on keeping things from breaking. And I'm not a mechanic. I'm having to learn this stuff as it goes. So I just want you, like, it makes a big difference just having that other fire position here. And I please take some thought about that other position. Having 3 people would be a game changer. If any of you guys are curious about what it looks like, please stop by. I will show you the stuff that I have to do every day because it really is a lot. So thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Patrick Messmer, outside city limits. I just wanted to address something. Someone mentioned from one of the officers made a statement that they couldn't afford a home in the city limits, and at our base wages, that's correct. A new officer starting out, and we've already seen that issue come up, and that is true. Myself, a couple years ago, we tried to upgrade me and my wife a home, and it was just everything was at the very top edge of what we could afford, and then we just couldn't end up doing it. So there's truth in that statement. The officer wasn't. He was telling the truth.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead, and then I'll get you, Christian.
Samantha Allen, inside city limits. I just want to say thank you to council and administration for approving that work session, and I look forward to bringing the financials and having that conversation with you to look at our marketing contract. I know you guys are doing so much work right now. We're feeling it too at the chamber, so I see you, I appreciate you, and I look forward to that conversation, so thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Christiana Smith. I live outside city limits. I just want to say thank you for really considering the resolutions that were on the agenda today. For really considering all of them. I know it seems like we're going to have a repeat of tonight's meeting in the near future, but I think the things that were discussed today are important to discuss. They need to be discussions had. Thank you for acknowledging my daughter. She was here in 2021. She tried to get across some comments. I ended up speaking for her. She was in first grade about the trash can disappearing from the Dino Park and the amount of trash that she picked up, and that she would like to see a trash can back at Dino Park. She did notice that a trash can reappeared at the Dino Park. So the decisions that you guys make do affect them. And they see those changes. And that's why it's important for me to come and be the voice for our youth that may not have the strength to come and be the voice, or even know as a youth that they can come and be the voice. I did briefly speak to Mel House that I do work in the teen room through Boys and Girls Club currently. But my comments come as a concerned community member. And I told her today the teens are noticing the changes in the teen room before the contract is over. And I think it is important that they are included in the conversation, no matter their age, because what is decided affects them, and they are taking notice. I spoke last month to that there was a teen council, that after the contract with Boys and Girls Club was established, it kind of flittered out. That's a transition item. We reestablish the teen council. We get them as part of the transition process. We get their views, we get their concerns. We see how we can make it a place for them to want to be. Safe places are important for them. So thank you. I also, to kind of speak to the comments made about the contractor for GIS services, GIS is no joke. I took a course through Fairbanks, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, just hoping to be an end user of GIS. If you've gone onto KPB Parcel Viewer and all of the different options you have to view the flood mapping, that's all GIS. It does not surprise me that we use GIS contracting services for one department and now are expanding into a second department, and I see that just continuing to grow. GIS mapping is not going anywhere, and it is a very useful tool and can be a central location for many different items. So I think having someone who's completing the work timely and accurately is very important, and it's not something you're gonna be able to replace the next day without paying more. So if you have someone that's working at a reasonable rate, completing good work, keep them happy. It's important. And yes, those dollars might not be spent here because they're no longer in the community, but it's important to have those available to you guys as council members to be able to look back. I'm excited to see the end product for the electrical work. Being able to layer out the ages of the poles, being able to see the heat map and the different areas to focus on. These are really important things. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mallory, inside city limits. I want to repeat what Morgan said and say thank you for approving that firefighter position. I'm not a firefighter, but I'm a fire marshal, and I watch Morgan drown every day. And I do my best to help him when I can, but I also have another job, and we all do. And that's just, the reality is the chief and the deputy chief and the building official and myself and everyone who works at the fire department, we're helping hose test, and we're helping test hydrants, and we're helping do all these things that maybe not in our job description, but it needs to get done. We know it needs to get done, and it's not a one-person job. So that one firefighter is going to make a difference, and we appreciate that. And I encourage you to really look hard at that second one because I think it's important. And then the other thing I want to talk about, I was late, so I missed the first little bit because I was in class. But regarding the bed tax, I don't own a short-term rental. I don't know all of it, but when I look at Anchorage with a 12% bed tax, and I looked it up, and they made $45 million last year, which equals out to $375 million were spent on short-term rentals or on hotel rooms in Anchorage. I mean, I know we're not Anchorage, but I don't think anyone's balking at spending that when they come to Alaska. And I looked it up for us, for Kenai, for Anchorage, for anywhere else. When you go to VRBO or you go to Airbnb and you look it up, it just adds it into the price. So I don't think it's going to affect owners of these homes very much. I think it's going to get passed right on to the people coming to visit. And I think we should take advantage of the people who are coming to visit Seward. I missed the first part, but people are willing to pay to come here. They're willing to pay to come to Alaska. They're spending a lot of money to come up here. Why not add 4%? That would fund a lot for our city. So that's my 2 cents. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Shane Han in City Limits and Seward Public Employees Association Union Rep. I just want to thank everyone for their work tonight and taking these resolutions seriously. I do respect the local business owners and the understanding that running a business is volatile, and you know, anytime you increase any overhead costs and everything can be somewhat scary. But I do look around town, and I look about the expansion around town. It's sort of been like a expanding and contracting lung, if you will, where we've lost a lot of services over the last 5-7 years since COVID, whatnot. But then also you see a lot of expansion where maybe things have been taken over and redirected and expanded in different ways, where a lot of these businesses that would be affected by the bed tax seem to be investing a lot of their own infrastructure within the community, which would show some type of stability and growth. And so I would look to understand like exactly the long-term risk for these people would be. And I want to understand it. I want to work together, and I want to recognize that we're at the beginning of what may be 2 sessions to approve a couple of different resolutions that would affect us, us employees of the city, very directly. But they're also tied into a lot of complex situations that the community has been facing for a long time. But there also has been this wage study and increase has been sort of pushed back, and we are no longer competitive anymore. And I think like a jump forward rather than trickling out 3, 4, 5 years. 5 years is a fraction of someone's 30-year tenure if they were to get to that. So I would encourage everyone to just try to keep fighting the good fight and work hard towards it, but not necessarily neglect because certain people are worried about profit margins or, I guess, their own hardships as far as adapting to any type of changes. As far as finding any, additional revenue sources within the budget and whatnot, I look forward to like sort of digging in myself with that. But also maybe there's a way where you could combine too. Right now, Seward's looking at 11% as far as the bed tax. Anchorage is at 12. Okay, we want to be somewhat comparable with that. We're asking for an additional 4%, which would put us right around 15. So why don't we meet maybe halfway, where maybe 13% could be potentially there. I'm just saying, like, maybe not totally throw away the potential of raising somewhat of a bed tax, but maybe not go for the whole 4. I don't know. I would leave that to administration to figure it out. But I do appreciate everyone's time. But I also want to advocate for the workers that work very hard, and they are not the people that don't have the ability to not worry about how each paycheck is going to affect them. Because like I said earlier, a lot of these people are working paycheck to paycheck, and they work hard for the city, and they enjoy their jobs. They appreciate their benefits. They appreciate their compensation. But a lot of times they do that at a sacrifice when it comes to, the community they decide to live in. And we all appreciate it here, for sure. But it is a challenge sometimes, especially for the people that don't necessarily have to have, profit margins or whatever they want to worry about, I just think it's important to think about the people that are struggling to pay their rents, their mortgages, and still decide to live here in Seward and participate in this community and dedicate themselves to this community. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to council and administration comments and responses to citizen comments. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to thank everyone for their input and conversations tonight. I think when administration looked at our hefty agenda this evening, we didn't leave that agenda meeting thinking everything was going to be passed in one night. It's a conversation as we continue on navigating our fiscal year 25 and 26 budget cycle. So these postponements aren't things that we weren't expecting. It's things that are all part of the plan. And due to the community input and conversation, we're going to end this year with a really well-informed, well-rounded, and implemented budget cycle. So a big thank you to everyone for that, and I really appreciate you all.
Mr. Bickley.
No comments, thank you.
Okay, I'll start over with Councilmember Kreitz.
I first wanted to thank everyone that spoke tonight. It was really good to hear everyone's thoughts on the things that were on the resolution tonight, particularly the bed tax and the work session with the chamber. I'm looking forward to that. I think that that's going to be a great discussion. And I did want to mention something that Nicole Lawrence said about the average home price being $400,000 here. That just is insane. And I think just myself and utilities, just our house, we pay enough in utilities for a mortgage of a house, just the utility payment. So it's hard for people to live here. The other thing I wanted to say is in regards to the firefighter position, and not necessarily speaking this as council or the fire chief's wife, but I am a volunteer with the fire department, have been a volunteer since we moved here. I was a paid firefighter, paramedic for 17 years in my first life. So I encourage you to look fully at staffing the fire department. I mean, we have volunteers, but we are a revolving door. We tend to get people interested, they come in, they train, and then they leave, whether it's their life is taking them somewhere else or they have family, they have other obligations, jobs. I just think we're too big of a city, a tourist destination to not have a fully staffed 24/7 fire department. I looked, and to answer your question, I looked up what some of the other destination cities that have cruise ships that are similar to us. Ketchikan has 15 paid firefighters, that's 5 per day on a 24/48 rotation. Sitka has 9, that's 3 per day on a 24/48 rotation. Skagway has 6, that's 2 per day on a 24/48 rotation. So I just think that public safety does need to be a priority, and hopefully we can get that done.
Thank you. Councilmember Warner. Yeah, he can't speak anymore.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you to all of the citizens that sent out emails and made public comments tonight. There was a lot on the agenda. Being a new member, it was exciting and scary at the same time. So I appreciate you all while I find my voice in addressing some of these matters. I also want to thank administration and the clerk's office for putting together such a robust packet with a lot of pretty heavy agenda items. So thank you to that. I also just want to put a plug that on Thursday, November 14th at 6 p.m. at the middle school is our PTA and site council meeting. So if you're interested in supporting our schools, please consider attending. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Finch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to welcome or thank everybody for coming out and speaking. Like I say, I support the pay raise, but I want to make sure we're conservative for our future. I especially want to note to Bailey Smith, that strong young woman coming forward and speaking. And I do want to know where the toys went.
Thank you. Councilmember Barnwell.
I didn't hear much of what happened tonight. I'm just kidding. It's really weird. I'm kind of in my echo chamber here. But a great meeting. I can't figure out why the meetings I missed were an hour and this one was 3.5 hours, but I'm not complaining. No complaints. It's a lot of work. You guys have done a ton of work for the admin and everyone here. And I was really impressed with the people that came and testified tonight. It's really great to see that energy and people speaking up and that dialogue. So thanks for the people for showing up and being part of that. Congratulations to the fire department. I think that's a great one. I'm really glad to get at least one fireman on the docket there. And then last but not least, Danny and Courtney are having their open house tomorrow at 5 for a kickoff on the comprehensive plan. Please fill out that comprehensive survey. There's 4 of them actually. It's 4 of them. They're 5 to 15 minutes each. You do not have to fill out all of them. You can be brief or not, but we need that data, and that data we'll put together and aggregate it, and then have some town forums. So I'm really looking forward to that. So please look that up. That's it.
Councilmember Finch, whatever. Councilmember, I've just zoned out. It's 10:30.
So have I. Councilmember Wells here.
This is Councilmember Wells.
So, I want to say how important it is to fund the wage study, and that I will continue to push for that funding. And I thank all of the city employees and administration, and I appreciate all the work that you do. And I want to say how, not only as a council member, but as a citizen, I would never, ever ask one of our employees or one of my employees to take a reduction in their health care or their benefits and in lieu of a pay raise so they can have more disposable income. And I find it, to be honest with you, insulting. And I would never support that. Lastly, I want to say that I look forward to the Boys and Girls Club discussions. As a father of 3 who never would have gotten where I am right now if I couldn't have dropped my kids off at Boys and Girls Club. So I'm a big supporter of that. So thank you, Councilmember Warner, for putting that up.
Okay, and that brings us to Vice Mayor Osenka.
Everyone has said pretty much what I was going to say. Just thank you, everyone, for your comments. I think there's a very important input for us. Thank you, administration, for everything, and thank you, fellow council members. It was a good meeting.
Okay, and that brings up to me, and this was, if any students want to look at the YouTube of this and see what local government's like, this might be the one to watch. Get a couple pizzas, and settle in. This was long and, predictably long. We can go until, Mr. Clerk, what is our actual, if we vote it, drop dead time?
So 11 p.m. is the mandatory cutoff, but you can extend it to midnight with the...
So if I talk for another hour and a half, anyway, thanks to everybody that came, and there was a lot of passion here, and I'm hoping we're heading in the right direction and that we all can walk away feeling we've done something productive tonight. With that, even think about it. I will adjourn us at 10:33.